Was that any good? Welcome to all weebs or non-weebs, whatever you identify as, I don't care. Welcome to the seasonal roundup, this winter 2025 seasonal roundup. I'm a bit late, you're gonna have to forgive me. This roundup has comfortably the most amount of shows in any one roundup, sitting pretty at a solid 38. So you're gonna have to forgive me for my tardiness. I had to get through them all. But yeah, so strap the fuck in because we're going over 38 shows in however long. We'll see how long it takes me. If I'm not dead by the end, you can thank whatever god you believe in, or just thank caffeine. I don't care. Alright, first on the docket is Sakamoto Days. If you guys watch this channel before, you know how I feel about Sakamoto Days. Fucking rules, and the anime is no different. I think Sakamoto Days is one of the very, 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 very rare cases, not just in anime, but in media in general, where it sets up its premise, which is already great, by the way. It's already fantastic, exactly what it is, and then just keeps getting better. Like, it doesn't have a drop. It just is a steady increase, pretty much. Especially, like, here in these first 11 episodes, and then, like, for the most part, there's maybe occasionally some dips here and there, but, like, what part 2 is gonna cover in the summer, it just keeps getting better. So, like, it's just a steady incline of just improvement and, like, cool scenes and cool characters and fights and shit. This Sakamoto Days, it's silly, it's fun. A lot of people griped on the animation this time around. I don't agree. Here's my take on it, right? Especially in the beginning, Sakamoto Days is about the, like, surprise, right? It's like doing a bunch of weird stuff that kind of catches you off guard that you're not really used to in this kind of show, in a show that's, like, typically filled with action like this. It's humorous. It's intentionally humorous and funny, so it's trying to, like, be funny. It doesn't, like, these 11 episodes don't have the most impressive fight scenes in Sakamoto Days. They're gonna keep getting better after this. So just using the sort of more fluid, sort of like instantaneous, I don't know what you would call it, but a lot of the movement happens instantaneously, right? Like Sakamoto just sneaks behind a guy and, like, it's a little slow motion sequence and he's about to, like, hit him with a spoon or whatever. It's just to catch you off guard as the viewer, right? So that completely works, especially in these first 11 episodes. Now, if we get to part 2 and it's still kind of this, I am going to be disappointed. But for these 11 episodes, I'm not disappointed at all. I think it works perfectly fine. It's completely serviceable as is, and I think it just works. Like, if you were coming into Sakamoto Days completely freshly, don't know anything about it, it's going to surprise you. You're going to laugh. It's funny. So, I don't understand the complaint about the animation, but whatever, that's just my take on it. The characters are just delightful, especially just from the off-rip. The characters don't have all that much going for them, but you can just tell that by the world building that there's going to be more to them that meets the eye. So, like, as it goes on and we learn more about Shin, a little bit more about Lu, and more about Sakamoto and his past, and you learn about more and more about the JAA and about the Order and stuff. So, like, with the world building, it's not so much that it's overwhelming, but it's also just enough that it kind of tickles you from early on, right? Especially just even from the beginning, you're like, ooh, I'm intrigued, I want to know more about this or whatever, you know? Sakamoto Days does a great job with that. And I do think they always make it pretty obvious when scenes are actually important versus when it's just a bunch of random hitmen trying to strike it rich and it's just going to be a humorous gag, right? A little gag, a little goof or a gaff, you know what I mean? And on that note, it's got such a nice balance with, like, the drama and the action with the silly stuff. You know, it just balances all of those aspects so, like, perfectly. So not only is it really funny, but it's also pretty dang compelling and fun to watch, and the action scenes are cool, and they really, like, make it work. Just the whole package just works. Like, somehow Sakamoto Days just blends all of these different elements together into this delightfully fun package. It's great. And even besides that, as far as the adaptation goes, voice acting, music, and, like, it's all great, you know? Like, as someone who's been reading the manga for, like, 2.5 years since the tail end of 2022, I was completely satisfied. Like, you know, maybe not completely satisfied. Maybe there's some room to move up with the animation, but I just don't care, you know? Especially at the beginning, because we are still building. The best is yet to come with Sakamoto Days. anime, you know, just anime in general, it's always blended silliness and seriousness to a point where they almost become muddied a bit. You know, they overlap a bit strangely, which I think is a big hindrance to, and has been a hindrance to, anime becoming super popular in the West, right? Because I think, you know, we always kind of drew a line with a lot of the stuff that we watch, but there's no line. You can mix silliness and seriousness and, you know, that compelling story however much you want to or don't want to with anime. There is no line. There are no rules. And just understanding that and coming to terms with the fact that you don't, for most anime, you don't take them 100% seriously, right? Stuff like Fairy Tail, Naruto come to mind, which have like really compelling stories, but also are inherently silly in a lot of aspects. But I think Sakamoto Days just blends the two opposite ends of that spectrum in a way that just really works so well, like so seamlessly, and could appeal to just about anybody. Like it clearly makes it obvious that yes, it knows it's silly and a little bit stupid, but it's also simultaneously awesome and really compelling and fun. You get me? Next up, I may be a guild receptionist, but I'll solo any boss to clock out on time. I think we all just need to say a big thank you to Miss Rie Takahashi. She's such a real one. She carries the show on her back, on her tiny back. But in all fairness, this one had more to it than I expected. It's not just Rie Takahashi cursing really loud. So I appreciate that, but it could have been that and I would have been okay with it. Like, this is one of those light novel series where they like drop a lot of buzzwords at the beginning and you have no idea to what degree any of it will be important. You know, when they start talking about Dia skills and dark gods and all that kind of crap, like who knows what any of it really means for the greater story of everything, you know? And a lot of it ends up not really contributing at all, especially because like Dia skills are like these God-given skills or whatever. Like you don't need to chant. I can't remember the exact the precise difference that Dia skills versus regular skills are, but our girl Alina has Dia skills, which are like super fucking rare, and like, you know, nobody gets Dia skills, but it doesn't really end up tying back to like, there's no god that gave her those skills. There's nothing really there that makes us feel like those Dia skills are important other than nobody else has them. And the world building is all right. Like I don't mind what it does. It keeps it fairly simple for what it is. Like it's pretty much not much other than pretty much standard fantasy stuff where it's like the adventurers guild that Alina works for, and there's, you know, the A rank party, the Silver Sword or whatever they are. Like it keeps it fairly simple, and like, you know, you can take in by osmosis that, hey, there's a lot of strong monsters out there, which is why Alina's constantly in overtime. The romance angle is all right. I don't really care for it that much, but it's not bad. I definitely found myself getting more on board with them as it went on. The main two, Alina and the Jade, I think is his name. I found myself getting more on board with them as it went on. So, fair enough. I think it's all right. The main sort of story beat that ends up sort of mattering is the last arc where the Guildmaster, spoilers, the Guildmaster basically, I think he inherits like a dark god stone or he eats it or something. Who knows what happens to him, but basically he's trying to revive his dead daughter at the cost of his own life. It's not his daughter, it doesn't matter. The point is he's trying to revive someone who died, but at the cost of his own life. Like, you know, and resurrection is a forbidden spell, yada yada. So what he does is he goes behind everybody's back. He's like, you know, he's being all edgy for like an episode beforehand, and then it turns out he's venturing deep into a dungeon to collect the Dark God Stone, but the Dark God like comes out of him, takes over his body, whatever, the whole 9 yards, and Alina sort of defeats him. They sort of snap him back to his senses, and they're like, you can't do that. Your daughter would want you to be alive. Even if you brought your daughter back to life and you were dead, what would be the point of that? The whole point was that she loved you as her dad. And then, but you're not going to be her dad, you're going to be her dead dad. If you bring her back. You're an idiot. That. It was an alright. It's alright. It's a little better than I'm making it seem, but it's not the best thing ever. But it is alright. It's like the most significant overarching story that happens in this. And it's resolved the same way everything else is, where Alina just gets out her hammer and yells really loud, and eventually breaks through time and space and the whole 9 yards. Yeah, yeehaw. I do think the other characters, like the healer girl and the thief guy that are in Silver Sword with Jade, they're all right too. Like, especially the healer girl. She has like a little backstory where she couldn't save somebody, and like the party members and Alina help her get over it. She has some trauma. I think it's all right. Like, the characters aren't bad. I did find myself I don't know if I want to go so far as say as liking them, but they weren't bad, and I like it was all right. I do think what they did with them was all right. The thief guy doesn't really do anything, but he's there too. He helps the healer girl a little more than the other two, so great. And then, you know, the whole show ends with Alina helping the guild master turn over a new leaf by being like, "Look, sir, if you give me more overtime, you're dead meat." And that's it. The whole show's kaput. The end. It really sticks to its premise, so you gotta appreciate that about it. But yeah, this was all right. I found it enjoyable, but mostly because of Rie Takahashi. I think she's phenomenal. Doesn't need to be said, but she really carries the whole show on her back. She's so good. All right, I'm getting married to a girl I hate in my class. This is surprisingly not bad at all. At the very least, I think the main two set a good example of a relationship by prioritizing their sort of direct outward communication and just talking to each other like civilized people. Similar to a lot of other romance anime like this, where it's the romance angle begins, it's unintentional, or it's a secret, or it's like intentional setup by somebody else, or they're forced, whatever. The setup for this is pretty contrived, but you can get over that. Otherwise, I like the art style, and the characters are least acceptable, plus they're distinct enough to like stand on their own and not overlap at all. So I appreciate that about them. They don't really have that much depth for the most part, but it's not like I ever didn't want to see any of like the main 4 or 5, except maybe the little sister a couple times. But the dialogue writing, just generally, it's pretty good. I think they bounce off each other really like smoothly and quickly, so it's like very quick-witted humor a lot of the time. I could see how someone younger than me might get a lot of laughs out of this. Like, there are a lot of lines that really are like surprising. I think the writing I think it generally does a pretty good job to its target audience, which I probably fall outside of the spectrum of. But what I do like about this show that a lot of other romance anime, especially of this style, don't do, is that it really trims the fat and the unnecessary parts that would usually come with a show like this, and lets you take in things about the characters via osmosis, like any good show would, right? And like, even from early on, the main two are like addressing what they're bad at and like working on fixing it for the sake of the other person, and even their own unique backstories do sort of play in. There's not much, but they are there. They play into who they are as like the personalities and like who they are now, and it's just foundationally strong in that sense. I don't think it really executes anything particularly compelling, really, off of that foundation, but it's enough to hold its own. So it's definitely not bad. The ending of this doesn't really do it for me, but I didn't hate it. It definitely didn't leave me satisfied by any means. I do like how Akane and Himari, blonde girl, is that her name? I can't remember. They have their little dispute, their little argument, and Akane sort of admits her feelings for the main guy, but just didn't really wrap up anything, really, because we know Blondie also has a thing for the main guy. But yeah, it just doesn't really, he doesn't even turn her down by the end. It's just very open-ended in that sense, which it really just maintains the status quo, which is the lamest kind of ending for an anime. But at least the journey to get there, I do think it was fairly entertaining for what it was. So I'm not gonna knock it too much, but this, like, that kind of ending is the kind of ending that would make me never think about an anime ever again. So that's exactly what's gonna happen with this. it was fine, but I'm never gonna think about it again. All right, next up is Momentary Lily, and conceptually, I think this approaches the sort of everything that is at the very heart of what anime was always intended to be by God, right? Momentary Lily, let's sum this up, is a dystopian action drama about cute girls with a bunch of distinct designs and personalities and distinct massive weapons, and they're fighting huge monsters, being best friends, and doing weird shit all the time. It's got crazy good animation, dynamic fight sequences, all kinds of off-the-wall comedic segments that just highlight how distinct and wacky the girls' personalities, over-the-top personalities are. We got hair moving all over the place and jiggle physics with every tiny movement. It's exactly what anime was supposed to be, always. Except for that it's not all that great. The pacing of this one is completely all over the place. Some of the first 9 episodes are just pointless, and a lot of the big lore drops come all at once, around episode 10 or 11, and ultimately don't change a lot, or don't really have any consequences about the world or the characters, really. Not really all that any significant consequences. Sometimes they just are, and nothing really changes. I'm not gonna spoil it, but it doesn't really change anything. It's just a bit weird and off-putting, and you can't quite digest it all because it's all fucking lore dumped on you at once. It's like the bucket at Great Wolf Lodge when it eventually fucking fills up and dumps all over your head. That's lore in this show. Another thing about it that kind of is iffy, the characters really ride the line of being too gimmicky, right? Like having one trait about them that just kind of defines their entire character. I like gimmicky characters, right? Something a la Yozakura Family or Tokyo Mew Mew or something like that. But these characters come very close to just being annoying. Like they just have like the one catchphrase that they use way too much. And I'm not... Like I'm talking like 5, 6, 8 times an episode. I don't know where that got that number, but I sure didn't take any notes about that, but I'm just guesstimating. It does get annoying though. Not really that big a fan of it, but there are like sort of flashes. There are moments where you think there might be other sides to these characters and they might become more well-rounded, and there might be like more to them than just like the surface level garbage that we've been seeing the whole time. Like, there might, like, for example, I can name this off the top of my head. I don't even need to look at my notes. I know exactly what I said. There's a moment in episode 2, which, again, I'm not going to spoil, but something big happens in episode 2 that really caught me off guard. There's a moment in episode 2 where the big sister character, the one with all the jiggle physics, is in a situation where she's fighting a monster and she's alone. She doesn't have any backup. And she gets pissed. She gets fucking angry, and she is like, fuck all my friends, they're not saving me in my time of need. And then when someone does eventually save her, like she's in the grip of the giant monsters, when someone does save her, that like sort of the outburst is never addressed again. She has another outburst like one time later in the show, but it's not addressed. Like that shows she doesn't have faith in her friends, which I feel like goes against the whole idea of what this show is supposed to be and what anime is a lot of the time, having faith in your friends. I feel like not believing in your friends is kind of a red flag. Just saying. But that's never addressed, right? And there are moments to a lesser degree with other characters that are kind of in the same vein. Not with the anger issues, but sort of surprisingly like, whoa, I didn't expect that from this character. Like, is there more to them that we don't know yet? There's not. And if there is, it doesn't get addressed by the show itself, so they don't care, so why should I? And there's a mystery that sort of gets solved with the lore dump in episode 10, 11, like there's with the main girl who cooks a lot or whatever. she has like memories from someone who she doesn't know, and we eventually discover why that is, and it's kind of a dumb reason, but whatever. So like that mystery element is intriguing. I think that's done fairly well, but a lot of those early episodes just don't really do anything. They're kind of pointless. But that, all that being said, right, there are moments, again, I've talked about anime like this before, there are moments where I see the vision and I'm like, this could have been really cool had they just given it the proper care, had they just conveyed the story right and just done stuff a little better, like sort of maybe pasted better or just written it a little bit better. Like the animation most of the time is great. Now I don't know exactly about what's going on with the animation. It feels a little too good, but that's just me. Especially for how kind of crap the story is. Now, I don't think it falls completely flat or anything, but it definitely doesn't deliver on the level that it totally could have. Like, maybe, and hey, this is just me spitballing here, maybe it has something to do with the fact that we dedicate like 2 or 3 minutes an episode to a cooking segment that doesn't need to be there. That's just me, though. But no, it's all about showing off the girls' quirkiness, and they're having fun and being friends and eating things, and it's cute because when girls eat things, they make it, anime girls eat things, they make it look cute. It's all so fun. Because like those cooking segments, they're literally just like, hey, fuck the plot. We're just gonna cook for a bit. Here's a recipe you could probably use if you were weird enough to actually follow along at home. And you know what, I don't want to be so harsh on the cooking stuff, because like it's supposed to be, it eventually becomes sort of part of the motivation for what the main girl, what's her name? Did I write it down? Renge. There we go. I found it. It eventually becomes sort of the motivation for Renge to fight later on. She fights so that she can keep these mundane happiness and of life or whatever, like the cooking parts of each episode, which they are in like every episode, by the way. It's weird, but they sort of, that's like a prime, it's supposed to be like our example an example to us of being like, oh, here's these mundane parts of her life that she's fighting to protect so she can keep cooking with her friends and eating stuff with her friends, which I guess makes sense, but it didn't need to be in every episode. Whatever the final product of Momentary Lily was, it just didn't quite land all the way. There's a sizable gap between it landing all the way and where it is. But it's, again, the vision is there. It's just a letdown, because it really could have been good. Like, really, like, properly compelling and interesting. And it was in some aspects, but it just didn't land like it should have. Alright, next up is Zenshu. Mappa wins again. We got the girl fucking pulling one of these. Like, can I get in frame here? Hold on. See, we got the girl pulling one of these. Not much to tell you here. It looks pretty. I think the premise is pretty interesting. It works on that premise, on the foundation, in all kinds of fun ways that catch you by surprise and come across really nicely. Not the least of which things that it built upon its foundation was giving a long-lived elf girl who's seen a lot of her friends come and go, a hot boy to Stan and become her Oshi, which helps her quit her satanic cult and get over her generational depression. Yeehaw. Now, I think Natsuko's a pretty good character. I like how in the first half, and like as the first half goes on, you can kind of see her walls that she's been keeping up this whole time come down little by little. Like, she starts doing weird poses and shit and just being more genuine with these characters from this, this complete flop of a movie from her childhood that she's loved since way back when, which she just never would have done if she was just still an animator surrounded by these office drones, right? She just doesn't care about. So like Natsuko meeting these characters that she's liked forever, it helps bring her inner personality out, which is nice. And like, I just think she's a really well-rounded character overall. And so is Luke. I think Luke's character arc is maybe not surprising, but it's got a lot of ups and downs, which is cool. And Luke's backstory where he's like seen a bunch of crazy shit and he's sort of like becomes really discouraged is not a strong enough word, but like he's fucked up after all the shit he's seen. And then when Natsuko comes into her life, comes into his life out of nowhere, he like finds himself regaining some semblance of happiness just being around her antics. I appreciate that about it. Like, and you see his backstory come into play, and then when he does the thing at the end and goes in ultra nightmare mode, it's a lot of twists and turns in this one, which I think are pretty good. It's got nice pacing in that way, which it keeps you on your toes. It's never too much of the slow. Goes slow to fast at a nice pace. I appreciate that. I also like how it ties into Natsuko's past into everything, and her present even, into how the story progresses. It's just, it really surprisingly well. Like, there's that episode that's all about the how a bunch of random people we've never seen come to be like almost nearly obsessed with Natsuko in very different ways at different points in her life. Which is, it's a good way to like show that she's facing a problem now where she hasn't experienced love before, and she's like, at the time when she was reincarnated, she was working on a project about love. I think that's what it is. But she had been going around asking people like, tell me about your first love, and being really weird about it. But like the whole searching for first love thing kind of ties in when like Luke originally admits his feelings for Natsuko, and then like everything goes to shit, and her like discarded drawings that she couldn't quite hack it get it brought to life and go ultra nightmare mode. And then when Luke hits his lowest point and she hits her lowest point, she's brought out by like encouraged by this character who she's been like with like over the course of the whole show. And like it sort of revitalizes her passion and her love for animation in a sense. Like that's sort of the narrative, the overarching story is like her getting isekai'd into the world of her favorite movie that flopped, her favorite flop movie, her favorite bad movie, reignites her passion for animation, which is a cool story because, you know, she, during her time being isekai, she'd also experienced a lot of these people being saved or just in general liking what she draws, which, you know, obviously if you're an office drone, you probably don't experience that much active like appreciation for what you do, especially by the people who are normally around you. I also like how it doesn't tell us a lot, especially directly, about the story of the original, what's it called? Tale of Perishing. It doesn't tell us a lot about the original plot of that movie, but it tells us just enough through like Natsuko's dialogue to see how much her involvement in the world has derailed the story in this isekai version of it from what it was originally, but also simultaneously showing how the conclusion of Luke's going to die can't be changed, right? So it sort of sets in that looming threat, right? Even over the fact that so much positive change has happened with her involvement. There's also the director lady who appears as a bird or whatever, and she's like really creepy. She's like something out of Edgar Allan Poe, an Edgar Allan Poe story. But yeah, and the last arc I think is really well done. The animation is just so cool throughout, of course it is, but like the final episode, I think it's the final episode with that huge battle sequence, is really, really good. Like it's good. It's really good throughout. A lot of the fight scenes are really good throughout. I think it concludes really nicely. Like seeing Natsuko, how much she's changed at the very, very end where she's back in her old world. It's just really satisfying to see. So I think it does a good job there. It's just pretty dang compelling overall. Like I just found it interesting. It's fun. Like it's got great ups and downs, pacing. Each of the main cast, it feels like they're there for a reason. They have their own roles to play. The premise is really unique, and I like the foundation that it builds everything on. And the story of Natsuko being isekai as a sort of way to reignite her passion for animation is, I think, a great overarching story. Even if we could probably stand to make the working conditions and salaries a little bit better of animators in real life. But that's a video for another time. Next up is Medalist. I really liked Medalist. I really liked Medalist way more than I thought I would. I don't feel like I need to sit here and drone on and on about this one because it's just one of those shows that is great and it's so plain to see. It's just so obvious. It's so good from the off. It's just This has got to be one of my favorites of the season. It's just so wonderful. I like how Tsukasa's figure skating journey. He was an ice dancer. His skating journey has a lot of parallels to Inori's, primarily in the fact that they started late. Like, skating is notorious for, if you don't get a lot of like the movements and you don't learn how to ice skate from a young age, you will never truly improve to the point where you can be a professional. Tsukasa and Inori are like working together to not prove that idea false, but show that there can be exceptions, right? So there are parallels there. But also, there are parallels in their characters and their sort of journey to improve, in that they're just so genuine and hardworking, and that's all they know how to be, which makes them an absolute joy to watch together. I think Tsukasa is just an absolute model coach, especially for a younger, someone who's coaching a younger athlete. Like, he's empathetic, he's understanding, patient, hardworking, outgoing, honest. He's the whole package. And I think Inori's initial arc of sort of not being confident in herself, wanting to change, but wanting to be proud of herself, like standing up to her mom, who's like sort of against her skating, I think beyond 5th grade, beyond elementary school or whatever. It's just really well done. It's even from the beginning. And then there are like parallels between Inori and the really like the prodigy girl Hikaru, but there are parallels between like Inori and Hikaru's rivalry, and then also Tsukasa and the gold medalist guy. So like there are very obvious parallels there, as the gold medalist guy is Hikaru's coach. So I think that works really well too. And like they're like those two, the gold medal guy Jun and Hikaru, both come off really intimidating. Hikaru is sort of like someone who Inori looks up to as like a goal to reach, right? Whereas that's the same way for Jun to Tsukasa, as someone like who Tsukasa's like constantly watched throughout that Jun's Olympic skating career. So like they both come off super intimidating, especially when they're still early on, but they both also have the courage to be like, hey, I am going to reach you one day. I'm going to help, like Scott's like, I'm going to help Inori reach Hikaru some days. And he's like, well, if you're saying that basically means you think you're better than me. It's a common trope in sports anime for the main character to sort of be like a rival to the prodigy type character. Prodigy? I didn't say that right. To the prodigy type character from very early on. But since the coaches are also such major players here, it kind of feels different, right? So there's like two different layers of rivalry there, which is cool. Speaking of those two layers, I just love the sort of bond that Inori and Tsukasa have. I think it's just adorable. Like, top 5 cutest things in the world is Inori like grabbing onto the drawstrings of his hoodie. It's like the cutest show on planet Earth. And even besides that, there are some other interesting players in the show, like the girl Mittens, they call her Mittens, I think. Her little backstory, and then her eventual arc with Inori and like that little sort of preliminary competition or whatever it is. I think that's cute and really nicely done. There's that one kiddo who's the child of the silver medalist who eventually becomes Tsukasa's second student. Like, it's all, that guy, he's sort of shown off before even becoming Tsukasa's student. So it's all intriguing. Like, there's very clearly a connection because you see him looking at the silver medalist guy who lost to Jun, the gold medalist guy who I said before. It all comes full circle. The building of this like sort of skating world is really well done, I think. It just helps get you intrigued and involved in what's going on. Like, even when the main characters aren't directly involved, and then when the blonde kid does become Tsukasa's second student, and he starts to overcome that doubt that's like been, instilled in him, being the kid of an Olympian, especially one who only amounted to a silver medal. And then, he just starts to overcome that doubt, like through seeing Tsukasa's passion and Inori's passion. Like, he realizes he has the talent, he can do it. It's just good stuff. This is maybe a weird comparison, but that blonde kid, he was studying under Jun, the gold medalist, before, but then he wasn't really seeing any results. He was just having a bunch of doubt. Him moving from Jun to Tsukasa as his tutor is almost like Ash's Chimchar moving from Paul to Ash, right? Right, because, you know, the blonde kid, he didn't really find a lot of success or growth under June's guidance, but then under Skasa's guidance, he all of a sudden finds himself improving and becoming more confident in his ability and himself in general. It's just good stuff. A tale as old as time, but goddamn, it's a good one. I also quite like the 3D animation in this. Figure skating, even when you watch it in real life, it feels like so free. Like the way skaters move feels like it shouldn't be possible. Like it feels like they shouldn't be able to move in any direction they want to, but they can. And I think the animation in this show just does a great job of expressing that elegance and grace. Like it's not perfect, but I do think for what it is, it does a really good job of conveying what figure skating is, you know, and there are like a lot of the angles and stuff that it shows the performances from are dynamic and fun. Like they're very expressive. All the figure skating performances in this are very expressive, and I like that about it. It just conveys a lot of especially like what skating is to a lot of the characters as well. Like for Inori, it's like her happiness, right? Like it's so a lot of that. Like her expressions and like her movements even conveys like how happy she is to be skating. And even like in Hikaru's performance is another example. Like she is so good that she just feels like she does do it effortlessly. So it's dynamic. A lot of the figure skating it just looks really good for what it is. Aside even from Inori's just perfectly lovable personality, like her constant practice to improve herself and like sometimes her occasional blunders, like it just makes you want to root for her on a very like human level, you know? I think this is just a really nicely paced sports anime with solid characters and great writing throughout. Really consistently good characters. Like I can't even lie, I actually did tear up a little watching the last performance. I think it was episode 13 of this. Watching the last performance of like Inori's last performance this season. I think that's only the second time I've actually had tears fall out of my eyes in any show I've covered in these seasonal roundups. This is just an absolute joy to watch. So fucking good. Man. All right. Ameku MD Doctor Detective. This one's all right. I think the characters in this, they're well established from the off, but, you know, just they're overall uninspiring, but, you know, there's plenty of well-paced drama. I think the cases that the Takao, what is that her name? I wrote down Takao. I think the cases she solves generally make sense and have interesting twists and turns. The problem is I don't really like Takao's presentation as a character. Some moments of hers are better than others. But she does at least sort of realize herself that she is a bit of an antisocial asshole. But I do think she's single-handedly redeemed by that arc, that little mini arc with the kid who has leukemia. I think that single-handedly redeems her. Like, even if she was an asshole sometimes in the first few episodes, like the first half or whatever, that hits you in the feels. That kind of thing. It's nothing we've never seen before, right? Even in other medical dramas outside of anime. But like, it was really well handled, and it sort of helps bring Takao out of her shell a little bit, at least to us, the viewers, right? So I think it works really well on that level, makes her seem a lot more human than she was presented before that. But the cases are fine. Like, I don't really have anything much to say. Like, the sort of locked room case at the end was sort of interesting. Had some jeopardy, a little weight behind it with, like, the partner guy about to be transferred to fill a hole at the university he was at, like, because some guy was getting arrested. Yeah, whatever. It was all right. Like, it was kind of fun. It's a medical drama at its core with a lot of weird shit about it. But one of that weird shit that I didn't like, part of that weird shit, one character in particular who I'm going to use as an example, maybe there are other characters like this that I don't remember, but this one girl carries herself terribly in this show, and I think this is probably like maybe one of a very few sort of settings where you shouldn't carry yourself like this. There's this lady who sees Takao as a rival, or like she just really hates her because Takao is just this naturally gifted diagnosticalist. She diagnoses people. So this lady, who I'm using as an example, is mad because Takao has showed her up once or twice and kind of rubbed it in. So she treats Takao like a rival in the same way she would as if she were like an actual detective, you know, like they were on the police, like in a police drama per se, like, oh, why are you the one solving all this case? I should be the one getting the credit, or all this other stuff. But she carries herself like that as a doctor. And I'm not sure when your job directly involves human life being at stake that you should be like, fuck you for saving more people than me. Fuck you for saving more lives than me. If I had been there, I definitely would have saved her life. It just feels wrong. Because that's basically, she doesn't say that, but that's basically what it boils down to. And it just doesn't sit right with me. It's, you know, being a doctor is probably like one of the very few instances where you shouldn't have a rival. You should just be concerned about saving people's lives. That's just me, though. What do I know? I mean, there's some interesting drama here and there too. Like, what was it? There was like that guy. There was that guy who smokes or whatever, who like died. There was like a curse or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just it's nothing that crime mystery detective shows haven't seen before. It's fine. It was all right. All right, next up, Medaka Kuroiwa is impervious to my charms. Yes, it's immature. Yes, it's dumb. And not really in the fun way. But I kind of can't help but like it. I just get on board with characters who are motivated and try hard. And Mona, even though she set this obstacle for herself and absolutely does not need to do anything, she is just jumping through all these crazy hoops just to get one guy to be in love with her. And I think it's charming, at least to a certain degree. Because, again, I just like people who try hard. Like, I think it's charming in a sense. And now I've read the manga, of course. I haven't done an updated Kodansha manga tier list, so I haven't talked about it yet. But I actually started reading this manga just after I did that original Kodansha manga tier list, so I've been reading it for almost 3 years. The pacing of this anime adaptation was a little slow for my taste. Like, because there are definitely moments where you're like, all right, get a move on, staying too long. But I do think, like, giving it a little more time is also not a bad thing, because just letting Mona really do her thing and because her voice actress did a great job as well. Like, just letting her sort of express everything that she's feeling at any time. Like, I think it just works really well. Because aren't a lot of rom-coms, especially that are like sort of, I guess, in the trashy category, like this one, where you hear a lot from the girl's perspective. And Mona is the main character in this show. There's no denying it. I just think following along with her primarily instead of Medaka is almost a stroke of genius in a very unique way, because she's just so, like, just her trying anything she can think of to get this dude to fall in love with her, you know, just be infatuated with her, really. Just give her a sign that he is infatuated with her. There's just something charming about it, even if it is trashy, I think. That's how I've always thought, even from when I read the manga. It's fun in a very unique kind of way, right? Like, I do think it's fairly charming for what it is. I think that a lot of the sort of secondary main characters don't do anything for me. I'm not gonna remember them once this manga is over, but they're not bad, and I do think they, like, play into everything nicely, at least. Except maybe that one girl who's Asahi's friend. I don't really know what she's there for. But yeah, the secondary main characters aren't winning any awards. Like, even Asahi, I don't find that great. She's not bad by any means, but like her and Tomo, I'm like, I don't care. And I certainly don't care about the dudes. But just Medaka and Mona, I'm like, yeah, there's just something fun about it. I can't deny. Because, like, it's not like each of the sort of individual events that happen and play out one by one. It's not like any of them are particularly disengaging or bad, you know? Like, each one I think is pretty fun for what it is. Like, I never felt like I wanted to stop watching or anything, or even that I never even felt disengaged. Like, I thought it was overall pretty good for what it was. And I think they announced season 2, so my favorite part of the whole series is going to be coming pretty early next season, I think. It's, again, a little bit slow for my taste, but it's not bad. Like, it's not too slow to the point where I'm annoyed, right? Like, maybe I'm a little impatient, but that's about it. Medaka as a character doesn't do a whole lot for me. I do think him winning over the girls, I think it's fairly warranted. Like, it makes sense. Especially, like, there's almost like a gap moe element to it, right? Where he's like seemingly, a lot of the times he doesn't have a lot of expressiveness, but then when he does, it's so like genuine and just comes across so nicely, and he's really like positive about everything. So in that sense, I do like, again, he doesn't do much for me as like a love interest character for the girls, but he's fine. He's completely inoffensive. And I do like where it ends as well, where it like Mona realizes that she actually is in love with Medaka. She has this revelation, and it like reverses the intro that plays every episode or whatever, where she's like, I'm never in love, everyone's in love with me. And then when she realizes it, she's like, I'm actually in love. Whoopsie. So that works. It was cute. It was kind of fun. I kind of can't but like it. Sue me. Alright, honey lemon soda. This is cute. I don't really know what else to tell you. I think this happens, you see these kinds of leading characters every so often. Uka is one of those leading rom-com girls where you're just on her side immediately and you just want to be like smack her face like, girl, have some confidence in yourself. God damn. Like, it's one of those where, you know, it's almost unbelievable, like not at all believable that she was bullied. You know, like, because obviously the anime characters are drawn to be pretty, and Uka is absolutely pretty, so like, why would she be bullied for being ugly? Which she's not ugly. So it's one of those, which is, it's just a little off-putting, but you know, you could sort of believe it, I guess. She's just an absolute sweetheart and deserves all of the good things. And as far as love interests, especially in like this genre of show with like a leading lady and a male love interest, I think Kai's pretty good. I actually found myself kind of liking the guy. Like, he set a very good first impression for me, in fairness, where, you know, he accidentally gets the lemon soda on her in the first episode, and she has to put, you know, gets on her uniform, she has to put the track jumper over her uniform, and Kai actually does the same thing, so she wouldn't be singled out for that in class. Which I was like, oh my god, dude, that's like so nice. That's like really thoughtful and considerate. So he's had a very good first impression. Honestly, a lot of what he does after that does not really follow up well with that, but it's okay. Because Kai does feel a little inconsistent over the course of these 12 episodes. Seems like really the only consistent thing about him is that he has a soft spot for Uka. And I guess also that he's sleepy, and that he doesn't show his feelings all that much on his face. But yeah, he's alright. Like, I don't mind him at all. Completely just inoffensive. And I even think that relationship with red hair, Rie Takahashi's character in this, there's a lot of drama built on the prior relationship that he had with her and whether or not he still likes her at all. But it does almost, like, seeing how that relationship came to be and also how it ended, it almost does explain why he does have a soft spot for Uka. Because it does seem a bit out of character for a guy like him to just be drawn as easily as he is to Uka. Especially with her not having interacted with him much before that seemed to be the case. None of the other characters really matter at all to this whole scenario. They're there to be friends, which is nice, I guess. Like, that's, I appreciate that for being Uka's friends. What am I, her dad? But like, you know, I appreciate them for being Uka's friends, but they don't matter to the story. I think there's like one other guy who's like kind of weird. Like, there are some people who are like, fuck you, I can't get a read on you, and he was being like, heh. I can't remember who he was, if that was even the right show. I'm pretty sure he was there. Oh, but speaking of her dad, I got a fucking bone to pick with. Uka's dad. He's the most insecure motherfucker on planet Earth. There's a point in the show where he like nearly forces Uka to transfer schools because he doesn't approve of the flashy kids that Uka has made her friends. And then when she stands up for herself against her dad, like, no, dad, I'm not gonna transfer schools. I really love the people who are my friends at this school. He has a fucking meltdown where he's like, oh, well, I guess you don't care about me enough. Like, if you really care about me that little, then I guess just do whatever you want. Oh. Like, brother, you are 46! Get it together! What do you mean if your daughter doesn't like you? You don't like me, that... What do you mean? I'm gonna kill that man myself. And she's gonna be my daughter instead. Anyway, this is another one where the main character, like, has a very visible, obvious growth from start to finish, right? So there's a very like sort of weak starting point and a much stronger end point where she does feel almost like not like a different character, but like she has grown a lot, and it's very plain to see, like where she's gaining confidence little by little as the show goes on, and she has more experiences with, you know, her friends and with Kai. Like, I just find Uka really charming, and she's just so over the top earnest, especially in this environment with all the flashy kids talking about vibes and shit. Like, you're just on board with her immediately, just hoping she has all the good things in her life. She's just this really cute, just a sweetheart. Like, that's what I'm gonna take away from this mostly. Like, I'm not gonna remember Kai, but Uka is just a fucking sweetheart. Like, there's even a point in the second half where she like earnestly approaches the girls who like bullied her when she was in middle school and tries to make up with them and like convey her feelings to them, which is just a really sweet moment and shows off how much Uka has grown since the beginning where she was so timid. Yeah, just a solid romance, I think. I think other people who are more into this type of show will like it a lot more than me, but I do appreciate what it has going on. So fair enough. Pretty solid romance. All right, I have a crush at work. I think this is pretty sweet, actually. There's not a lot of substance or anything, and I don't really find it particularly funny. Who the fuck is riding a motorcycle? I don't really find it particularly funny or anything, but it definitely has a much more mature feel about it compared to the vast majority of anime rom-coms out there. Even compared to other office rom-coms, which feel a little more, I guess, silly. This one just doesn't really have as much silliness attached, which in a way helps it stand out and have its own identity, even among office rom-coms. Like, the characters are very serious about their work and separating it from their private lives, even if that doesn't always work out how they want. And I do think the main two set like a proper good example for romantic relationships. Like, they don't always agree with each other, but they communicate very properly, and they have a friendly rivalry with each other, like that stems from before the start of the show and when they were dating. So they come across like very genuine, and overall I think their relationship is just really sweet throughout. Like, the things they do throughout the show are mundane, but they help showcase how an actual relationship might stay together. They do new things, they go new places, the whole 9 yards, right? Like, they talk to each other and really convey what they want properly. On a completely separate note, it's also pretty refreshing to have an anime rom-com that just doesn't involve the characters' parents at all. Like, we just don't need to see that. Like, half the time parents in these kinds of shows just end up causing pointless conflict that doesn't need to be there, and when we could just have more time focusing on the actual main characters. So I just think that's a good thing. And even borrowing all of that too, like the main characters, they aren't one-dimensional either. The main girl has a little backstory that we see at some point in the middle, I think, that shows us why she wants to develop sweets and like why she's constantly facing hardships with her work. Like, you know, there are sweets that she develops that aren't selling well, or, you know, she's like working on them and she's not quite getting the taste or the branding right, all that stuff. So she has to work through those problems, and the main guy, he like takes an accounting test at some point to get like a higher level of certification, so like, he has to deal with that. So like these are like problems real people would actually face, but it almost just like seeing their relationship and they're supporting each other, the main two really supporting each other it's just really sweet. Like I said, just a model relationship. I really appreciate this show for like just illustrating that so well. And even like there's a side romance in this, and there's even a side romance in this too. Like there's the one like what's it, Some and the accounting chief girl, I forget her name. I even find that to be pretty charming for what it is. Yeah, it's just not gonna blow you away at all. It's in fact is really, really mundane, but it's also just really sweet on a very human level, you know? I really appreciate that about it. So fair enough. Alright, Okitsura, I fell in love with an Okinawan girl, but I just wish I know what she's saying. This is pretty cute. Yeah. This one's kind of reminiscent of Hokkaido Gals, but with even more focus on informing us about culture stuff. Which is a little bizarre, but it's alright. And I have to imagine the culture lectures are at least mostly accurate considering how detailed it is. So, like, there is a lot of Okinawa lore dumping in this. It's practically like you're constantly getting lectured by an Okinawan tour guide. Just like constantly smacked with, just like constantly berated with new information. There was like, I almost counted, or I like took note of the final count. I believe it was like 5 or 6 times per episode there would be like a intermission where like these weird mascot characters would come in and there was a narrator who would just give us Okinawa facts. Like 5 or 6 times per episode. So a lot of cultural information dropping. I didn't quite put that together, but that's okay. And you know what? It's not like the lore, Okinawa lore dropping isn't interesting, I guess, but it's also not really what I watch anime for. But, you know, I think it's quite fun for what it is. I like the characters, especially the main 3. I think they're fun. The writing is silly, like it's smooth. All the characters bounce off each other nicely. Even the humor I think works pretty well. But all that stuff is also just kind of like good in a serviceable way instead of a memorable way. You know, like I think the romance is all right too, but at least for me, I was rooting for Kana, but it does blend, it balances nicely with the lore dumping. So there's not too much of any one thing at a time. I do think like the romance it's all right. Like the whole, like this show, it's fun for what it is. And I do like the characters for what they are, but that's it. So fair enough, I guess. They really just wanted to teach us about Okinawa. And you know what? In all fairness, I checked Google Maps and that bitch is way farther from Japan than I thought. So hey, whatever. I learned things. I don't think I'll remember them, but I did learn, and they were in my brain at one point. Whether or not they're still there is a completely different matter. Next up, Anyway, I'm Falling in Love with You. I think this might be the most shoujo anime that ever shoujo animated. Alright, look, here's how it goes, right? Independent, hard-working protagonist girl who has a dream of being a manga artist in the future. She's doesn't think she's cut out for love. She's like, I don't need romance, fuck that noise. But she just so happens to be surrounded by these 4 super handsome boys who are childhood friends of hers. And it's revealed over time, one by one, that all of those 4 boys kinda, at least partially, but mostly, definitely, are into the main girl. Because of all of those things that I mentioned, that she's hardworking and earnest and has a dream for the future. I didn't say earnest, but that's part of it. And there's also so many fucking scenes where, like, you know, one of the guys is, you know, it just sort of, the camera's way far back from one of the guys. He's like walking over a bridge at night, or he's like looking over the pool at nighttime, looking up at the moon, being like, oh, she can't keep toying with my heart like this. And then like walks off screen. I mean, that is basically the whole show. Like, it's just the main girl being really nice and to all the different boys in different ways. She has very unique relationships with all the different guys because they're all so distinct character-wise. But they're all constantly trying to win her affection, and like they don't. Some of them don't quite show their feelings very well. Like, one guy is really overly aggressive that's almost uncomfortable, and one guy is like, no, I don't have a crush on you, but I'm also not gonna let anyone else take you from me. And then one guy's like, I don't have a crush on you, but I might, maybe a little bit. I'm really outgoing, but I actually have a secret dark side or whatever. And then there's a fourth guy's like, I'm not interested in I don't have a crush on you. That's crazy talk. I'm gonna do push-ups or whatever he does. I don't know. But that's it. That's the whole show. They go to the beach once and there's fireworks and there's swimming. I literally just watched this show today. I don't know why I've forgotten about it already. One thing about this show that I think is notable though, I like the approach of it starts off and then also throughout it kind of occasionally shows scenes of the main girl how X amount of years in the future where she actually is an adult and has a job as a manga editor, not an artist, but she's supporting this teenage aspiring manga artist, I guess editing her manga in this case, which parallels parts from the main part of the show where she also has a manga editor when she was a teenager. She had a manga editor who was like, you gotta just look for inspiration from your real life, and he was like, main girl, you're probably living a really fulfilling youth right now. And the main girl was like, I'm not living a fulfilling youth. My youth sucks. And then when we see scenes with the main girl as an adult, she's like, oh, wait, actually, now that I'm an adult, I do realize that my youth was really fulfilling and fun and glittering and whatever the fuck else adjectives they use. Because, you know, once we get out of school, we realize, like, fucking sucks. And, like, in the future, she's, like, still keeping up with the boys as well. Like, you know, it almost adds a sort of intrigue, I guess. It maybe adds a little more weight to what happens in the main part of the show when the main girl's a teenager, because we do know where she eventually ends up. And it's never made clear whether or not she's married or is actively dating any one of the four boys. I don't think she is. There's gonna be another season of this, so maybe we'll find out. Anyway, it wasn't not enjoyable, but it's definitely not my thing. I thought it was alright. It was almost funny how shoujo was. Next up is Welcome to Japan, Miss Elf. I surprisingly really liked this one. Like, way more, like, you know, maybe really liked is an exaggeration, but my expectations were so low, and I actually ended up liking this one a good amount. So, fair enough. This is really, really cute, I think. It's like of the genre of isekai that focuses heavily, I guess it's sort of an isekai, it's half an isekai, that focuses very heavily on building a romance between the main two characters. I actually find this one to be really solid. It's not particularly impressive from a world building perspective, but it's also because it's only half an isekai. So in a world building perspective, it doesn't really need to build that much of a world because the other half of the show takes place in regular Japan. But because it does go back and forth between the two, it does keep the interactions between the main two, since a large part of the show is just the main character and the elf girl. It does keep their interactions feeling fresh and fun, since they do flip-flop. So I like that about it. And the writing with the main two, I think, is just genuinely fun, like consistent and very sweet. And, you know, maybe a lot of it is Maria trying food and really liking it, but that never felt out of place or got old or got on my nerves. Like, it's literally just 12 episodes of the main two being completely in love, and everybody knows it except for them. Well, I mean, they figured it out eventually, but, you know. But even aside from the main two, the Dragon Girl lady, I think, is a fun addition to the cast. Like, even the main two's interaction with her at the very beginning is silly and fun. Maria's little friend, who's like the librarian girl, and her husband, they're like welcome side characters who appear once or twice. I like them sort of for what they are. Even the cat child that they rescue, you know, it's like one of those where you just immediately care because the cat child was fucking tortured by kidnappers. So you immediately want the cat child to be rescued by the main characters and given a better life, which happens. And sort of on that topic, a lot of what the main characters actually do isn't all that important to what the show tries to convey, really. It's not really telling an overarching narrative or anything, but I do appreciate that they spend time while they're in Japan sort of strategizing what they should do in the isekai. You know, it's not like they separate them completely, right? Like, everything they do matters to them, and they do spend time trying to figure it all out, even when they're not actively participating or solving it as we speak, right? They're really thinking everything through, which I just appreciate about it. Like, example, like when that first initial confrontation where they got fire breathed to death, but came back and they were talking while they were in his apartment, like, all right, how do we approach this? What should we tell her? There's also when they were strategizing how to get the cat child back from the kidnappers, that kind of thing. So there's a good amount of detail put into these situations and also into how the characters approach the situation. So I appreciate that. So like they always do feel like they're motivated and want to accomplish something. And so all of that adds a bit of drama to the proceedings, which is nice. And I think just in the end, Maria is just an absolute ray of sunshine. Just watching her constant enthusiasm about anything, whether it's like food or learning Japanese, watching anime, like, or even her talks with like Kazuhiro's grandpa at the end. It's just wonderful. It never feels like too much of any one thing. Again, I've said a million times this roundup, great balance between the isekai and Japan stuff. It just strikes that balance so nicely. It even also balances the romance and the fantasy aspects, which would be like the guild adventuring stuff. It just balances everything really nicely, the more mundane moments with the more dramatic moments. It just works really well on all those different levels, in my opinion. Like, I'm not gonna think about this show ever again after this, but it was a really enjoyable watch, especially because I didn't think it was going to amount to much. It was much better than I expected. So, no notes. Good stuff. All right, Headhunted to Another World, from Salaryman to Big Four. I actually found this one to be pretty fun. Again, kind of inconsequential, but for what it was, I did enjoy my time watching it. And I really can't ask for much, because I do watch these to be entertained. So if I'm entertained, that's a win. Like, this is another one that knows how stupid it is and takes advantage of that in a good way. But it's also serious enough. It takes itself seriously enough to the point where you do care about what's going on. And I think the characters really help with that too. Like, they're always taking what's going on seriously, but simultaneously the show knows that it's a bit inherently silly, right? Which is, it's always a good thing when a show is self-aware. Like, the main guy, he's serious but also relatable. He has a lot of different aspects to his character. Like, we see him overcome a lot of different trials and tribulations that make him use all of this, like, a lot of parts of his vast wealth of knowledge and experience that he carried over from working however God knows how many years as an office worker, especially in this unfamiliar environment where he's like adapting on the fly and like really has to wrap his head around a lot of unfamiliar concepts. I just think it works really well, surprisingly well, especially considering man dresses in a suit for the entire duration of the show and is really out of place. Like, he just kind of makes it work. And characters like how do you say that, Omandra and Sylphid, like these other Elite Four generals, they're nice additions as well. Like Sylphie, I really didn't expect her to like have a backstory or any other aspect to her character, but there was like that thing with her brother where like the brother was hoarding all of these materials for whatever reason. There was something about that, I can't remember, but that did sort of add to Sylphie's character a little bit. I appreciate that. There was the last member of the Big Four doesn't do a whole lot. I don't even remember her name, but she's there, and it's not like I didn't want her to be there. But again, like those, especially with Omandra and Sylphie, they're not one-dimensional, and I think they fit into the story nicely. Like, Omandra just plays off the main guy really well. And one thing that absolutely should have happened, that thankfully did, was the Demon Lord did have a demonstration of power, like towards the very end, where we like see that he is supposed to be there at the top of the kingdom, right, with all of the power that he has, because he didn't do anything pretty much until like the very last episode. So that was a good thing that needed to happen. Like, this one was just fundamentally pretty solid, and I think it knows it's got a silly concept and it builds off of that really nicely to just land some nice easy humor. It's nothing so compelling or like with any crazy stakes or anything that it gets you super invested, but I do think it's compelling for what it is. And even beyond that, like I mentioned this And even beyond that, like, I think the world building of this, like, there's a lot of different places the main character has to go to, and there's a lot of different problems that different parts of the world are dealing with. I think the world building's really good for what it is. Like, again, not so much that it's overwhelming, but enough to get you involved in being like, hey, this is a world that's moving. It's not stagnating when the main characters aren't involved, right? It's good stuff. So fair enough. All right. The Red Ranger becomes an adventurer in another world. This was way better than I thought it was gonna be. Well, maybe not way better. I did sort of expect it to be a banger going in, but I actually didn't expect it to be an actual banger. I expected it to be shit, but it was actually good. There's nothing particularly super good or special about this, but everything that it needs to do right, it does exactly right. Like, it's not like the overall story that it tells is anything particularly compelling. Like, I don't even know if you could say that it has an overall story, really, unless you want to talk about bonds a lot. But it doesn't need to have a super involved story. Like, this show, it's silly, it's over the top, and its humor is legitimately spot on. Because not only is it self-aware and, it gets meta sometimes with, parodying certain tropes of both isekai and Super Sentai, parodies tropes of both, like, of fantasy elements and Super Sentai stuff, but also it's just conventionally funny with how all of the characters are so different with each other and contrast, and just has good writing in that sense. Like, the main cast of characters are practically like One Piece level weirdo misfits who look like they're not even from the same show. and I think that just makes them all the more likable. Like that humor I mentioned is so good because it simultaneously parodies Super Sentai while also leaning in to exactly why everybody likes Super Sentai so much, right? It even does a good job of showing how the main characters' relationships with various other characters outside of the main cast plays into their personalities, like who they are as characters now. Like Red with that his best friend from childhood or whatever that we see in one episode, and like there's that one royal mage girl who runs the academy and has controls the research, and how she was with witch girl. I forgot her name. I even find the stuff with the elf girl and the sand guy that happens towards the end, I think that works pretty well. Like, there's even a proper backstory for those two, so like you actually sort of want to root for them, like properly, or like, oh man, please let this work out. Like a lot of this stuff it doesn't need to do, but it just does so well for no reason. It's surprising. And it's not like Red, our main guy, a Red Ranger is always typically a loud idealist idiot, but Red in this case is not just a loud idealist obnoxious idiot. He is that, but he's also surprisingly well-rounded for a character, especially for a character in a show like this with like a weird throwaway isekai premise. He could have easily just been some throwaway garbage character who is just the most stereotypical Red Ranger imaginable, and it still would have been kind of funny. But Red in this case is actually a lot more well-rounded than that. Like, he's considerate, he's pretty wise, surprisingly wise, and he's optimistic in a way that never comes off badly. Like, he contrasts the witch girl so nicely character-wise that it's so easy to get on board with them as a group from the beginning and even root for their romance as it develops too. And even barring all of that, it has all of the elements that you would expect out of a Sentai type show like this. It has giant mechs, giant swords, epic music for no fucking reason, playing the theme song during the climactic fight scenes, random new abilities that appear when the characters have moments of power friendship moments, and it even comes out of nowhere with some surprisingly good animation sequences, occasionally. Like, the animation is not always on the same level, but it has some surprisingly good battle sequences, which is cool. I even find the world building to be pretty complete and just very sensible, because there's a lot of various intriguing things about the world that don't necessarily have a lot of major importance to the story that we see play out, but it still helps us get a feel for the world. Again, see that it's active even when the main characters aren't involved. There's a lot of things going on outside of what the main characters do, which is nice. It's good. One thing I love about this show is a lot of just the core themes about it are brilliant, because yes, It's dumb, it's silly, it's over the top, it's self-aware in the fact that Red is sort of, it's in a way, in some senses, is a caricature of a Red Ranger type. But it also never once falters on the idea that bonds are, in fact, the most important thing for people to have, and that they do, in fact, save people from despair. It simultaneously recognizes how dumb that sounds, and even how dumb it is sometimes, but also sticks to it without ever shying away from it. It's great. Like, I love that about this one. Even on the occasional times it flashes back to the other Rangers, or just it flashes back to experiences that Red had before being isekai'd, it feels, that stuff we see feels complete to the point you can believe it really happened. You could believe that it happened even in, like, a Super Sentai show that we'll never see, right? Even the other Ranger characters who don't appear much or only in flashbacks, I find to be enjoyable. Like, they're just very foundationally well-built characters. Like, you could just see how this would be a Power Rangers or a Super Sentai show, right? You can see it. It's just so obviously there, even if we know pretty much nothing about these other Ranger characters. It's just really well done. Just as the cherry on top, it did not need to do this, but in the last episode, it even adds a dark transformation that, like, feeds on Red's rage. There's a moment where, like, Red gives into his, like, loneliness and despair, and, like, sort of the dark Ranger transformation, the Kizuna Black, I think it was, that, like, forces Red into, like, you know, feeling this, like, loneliness that he's so afraid of. Like, it didn't need to do that, but I remember seeing the Kizuna Black transformation and being like, oh shit! Oh man, it's getting real. Like, they didn't have to do that at all, but they just go the extra mile in, like, every aspect in this show. Like, it just surprises me. Like, again, it's not the most compelling thing ever, and I don't even really find the characters to be that great, but for what they are, they're absolutely enjoyable to watch, and, like, I find them to just be really fun. Like, the writing's great in this. Like, it's just so consistently good. And even the Kizuna Black transformation, like, the loneliness and stuff ties back to something that happened before being isekai'd with the secret sixth member of the Rangers, and, like, that was an accident, and, you know, Red blames himself for their death. Like, it's just good, man. Like, even the cliffhanger that the final episode leaves off on is great, because, like, even if we never get any more of this show, like, if we never get a season 2, we know the direction it's going. So, like, it's just a really enjoyable watch from start to finish. Like, just so fun for what it was. Like, it just doesn't do anything super compelling, but that is its strength. It's just that it's silly, but also that it takes itself seriously at the best times. Like, it balances that so well. I'm so surprised by how much I like this one. All right, possibly the greatest Alchemist of all time. Not a lot to say about this one. This is just an easy, feel-good isekai with some pretty ladies around. Not a whole lot of real weight, or not a lot of consequences. Just, it even made me laugh, I think, once. Just an easygoing isekai where a guy makes stuff and there's pretty ladies, a lot of pretty ladies. There's even a surprising element of intrigue where the goddess summons him. He's supposedly, I think he's an accidental summoning. I believe that's true in this one. The main guy's an accidental isekai summoning, but the goddess sends him back in time a year before the hero summoning that is performed by the Church of Divine Light, who are not so good. The Divine Light Church is bad news, but they do like a hero summoning ritual to summon kids from Japan. But the goddess who summons the main guy sends him back a year before that, so he can help sort of remedy the bad things that are going to happen as a result of the hero summoning spell, which is like a forbidden spell or whatever. But the Church of Divine Light doesn't subscribe to that rule that the hero summoning is a forbidden spell. Whatever. You get it. The girls, I don't find them bad or anything. They don't feel like they take up space. Like, they each have their own role to play, I think. I think their personalities are fun. And when we do see the summoned heroes occasionally, the ones who are summoned by the Divine Light Church, I like the sort of added element of the girl the only girl of the three heroes sort of being immediately suspicious and sort of not really playing along, but the guys go bad and, you know, they start, you know, just being complete utter pieces of shit, going down the wrong path, if you will. And she helps with like lore dumps as well with the world building. So that's nice. Like it's just fairly well done for what it is. It's just nice, I think. There is some like weight to some of the stuff that happens, but you kind of know that there's never going to be anything that goes really wrong, you know? Everything's gonna be fine, all the characters are gonna be fine in the end. There's not really gonna be any major consequences. And that's fine. So, fair enough. Not bad at all. Alright, Bogus Skill Fruitmaster. About that time, I became able to eat unlimited skill fruits. That's really what it's called. The first couple episodes of this kind of whiff the first impression. It doesn't really set a good example of what the rest of the show's gonna be. It kind of looks like shit at the beginning, but it actually sort of evolves into a show that it's something I wasn't expecting. It kind of, the first couple episodes really portray the main character as a reckless idiot in a bad way. In the drama in the first two episodes just kind of feels half-assed and rushed. I mean, pretty much everything it does after the first couple episodes really isn't that bad. I think even throughout, the main character is the most grating character in the whole show. And even though it's not really character development, the way the show portrays him feels like it improves after episode 2 or 3 or whatever. But he doesn't really have any character development. He just sort of gets lucky and starts eating a bunch of skill fruits that give him cool abilities or whatever. The appraisal girl who's always by his side is kind of a nothing character. She just is convenient to have around since she has the appraisal skill and she also likes pizza a lot. Good for her, I guess. But I do think Lena and Monica are at least pretty solid, especially for what they are. Like, they both have pretty good backstories that play into their motivations and all that. Works pretty well. I even find Dratena to be surprisingly compelling as a character. The necromancer girl, she has a pretty satisfying character arc. This is the kind of surprising twist, I think, of this one. Like, the last 4 episodes pretty much entirely just divert from the main character and follow Lena and Dratena in, like, this city of water fairies or whatever the fuck. And Dratena is, like, she's trying to be a dancer or whatever to do the fairy dance, but she's shunned by the populace because she has, like, this forbidden skill or whatever. But it's only because of that. Like, she didn't ask for it or anything. You know, she's just being shunned by everybody just because she has a bad skill. Not a bad skill, a scary one. A scary skill. But then, like, she actually does get to do the fairy dance in front of everybody and sort of redeems herself in the eyes of the populace or whatever. And this was after there's this big fight with, like, Lena's giving the blessing of the fairies or whatever. It's all kinds of nutty. But we also, by that point, realize, like, the significance of the fairy dance that she's always wanted to do. And, like, it's a really, like, really good full circle moment for her, especially because we see how, like, kind of reluctant she is when she first appears in the mansion or whatever. There's, like, a hint of reluctance about her, especially since she's working for that weird, sketchy sister who's she's part of the evil scheme going on behind the scenes, a big part of it. Obviously, the evil sister is bad news from the off because, like, she just, you know, the difference with which she treats people with good skills versus bad skills is very evident from early on. But she never gets comeuppance for being evil, which is annoying. But, like, her scheming behind the scenes, it does act as, like, fuel for everything that's going on. And, like, it all kind of ties back to her scheming. All of the points of conflict tie back to the sister lady scheming whatever it is she's doing. And it makes sense with the world building as well. Like, since she's basically completely in charge of, like, granting skills or, like, assessing what skills people have. So, like, her being the mastermind, like, sort of manipulating things from behind the scenes completely makes sense. Like, depending on, like, she can manipulate things to the point where, like, she's going to recruit certain people with certain skills who can help with her schemes or whatever. She can involve a lot of different people. She'll have a lot of different connections. But since she doesn't get any comeuppance, it just kind of feels eh. But yeah, this one's alright. I really didn't expect it to divert for the whole last 4 episodes and just take away attention from that kind of lame main character. But hey, I was all about it, you know? Like, I do think Monica has a cool little arc. You know, again, it's nothing we've never seen before, but it works for her. So she was good as well. But I do like Lena and Dratena. I like their little budding friendship towards the end. That was quite nice. I legitimately did enjoy those last 4 episodes. Other than that, it was just sort of all right. This one's kind of weird, but All right, from Bureaucrat to Villainess, Dad's been reincarnated. You know, every so often, this isekai villainous genre of anime has a dark horse banger from out of nowhere. And this one's kinda it, dog. Now, it sounds even more weird than most isekai already do, which is insane to say. But actually giving it a try, it's immediately apparent that instead of going for any potentially weird approach of Dad being reincarnated as a 15-year-old girl, it instead turns into Dad using his 52 years of wisdom to like make nice with the other students and like help guide Anna in the right direction, who, by the way, Anna is just so likable, just so intrinsically likable that it's almost scary. She's just the sweetest girl. I also can't help but really like the goofiness of the mom and daughter. Like, it's just so it's so fun to watch them react in real time to what Dad is doing as the villainess, right? What's her name? Grace? In this, the name of the villainess? Just especially because they could see his inner thoughts too on the television screen. It's like shades of Endo and Kobayashi, which I really liked from a couple of years ago. And even better, like a sort of another positive twist, the dad is in a coma and not dead, so you kind of realize that even if it doesn't happen in the span of these 12 episodes, you know eventually at some point the dad will return to his wife and daughter, so that's nice, just knowing that that is probably going to happen. I didn't find any of the love interest pretty boys to be especially fun or anything, but it's not like they're bad. Like, they're all distinct and gimmicky enough to make me be like, all right, yeah, you're kind of funny, I guess. In that sense, they're like welcome additions to the cast. Like, they you know, they have those silly little ticks. And for what it's worth, like, there aren't really a lot of like full casts of these like, you know, isekai reverse harem love interests who all make a positive impression. But these guys, none of them leave a negative impression, and they're all kind of silly in their own ways. So that's positive for me. Even if I don't remember any of their names, but still. Again, no real like story that holds weight or anything, but I just found it a delight to watch. Like, I never felt myself being disengaged from it, and basically all it is just working on these relationships between the characters, especially the one between Grace and Anna, which is just wholesome. Just so wholesome and fun, like, you can't knock it. But yeah, for what it is, like, no notes. It's a delight. It's got fun and silly writing, you know, just a baffling premise that it just absolutely makes work with a bunch of different characters who are unabashedly their over-the-top goofy selves. It just works. Alright, I'm a noble on the brink of ruin, so I might as well try mastering magic. This is boring. None of the characters leave an impression at all, and the story of, was Liam being super OP at magic, finding cute girls to adventure with, and then building a nation that's got even more cute girls. It's uninspiring and indistinct from any other throwaway isekai. It's not like the way he does it is any special or interesting. It's just he's so good at magic that everything just comes so easily. So there's really not a lot of conflict. Like, really, the only point of conflict in this show is with his older brother, who like the older brother thought he was gonna take over the family name, but you need to accomplish something every 3 generations or whatever. Who cares? The older brother's jealous of Liam's talent and tries to unseal a dragon. Well, he does unseal the dragon successfully, but then the dragon is just like, I'm just gonna be your friend. I'm not gonna kill nobody. He just becomes Liam's friend. The end. And that's the only real point of conflict in the whole show. Like, you know, like I said, Liam, he never struggles for anything, and I guess that's sort of the point, like, that helps make it a little easier to digest and just watch without getting invested or anything, but it's just boring. Like, there's nothing wrong with an easygoing anime like this that just does things for the sake of doing them. And I guess for that category, this one really isn't that bad. Like, the world is fairly well built, and the characters are generally consistent and inoffensive. They have, like, some of them have reasonably charming personalities, and the writing is okay. I think the humor is all right as well. Like, it just doesn't excel in any category. And not it doesn't even approach excelling. It doesn't even like remotely do overtly well in any one category. It's just fine. Like, I never even considered giving this show my full attention, and I never even considered genuinely caring about the story or the characters or even thinking about it at all after I finished each episode. And like, hey, if that's your thing, this one will certainly scratch that itch. It is completely unremarkable. It might even cure your insomnia. You're welcome. Alright, Beheneko, the elf girl's cat, is secretly an S-ranked monster. This was actually surprisingly fun. Like, all around pretty solid, especially for like a silly, gimmicky show like this that would usually just boil down to overly aggressive fan service. Like, it sets up what it's about in pretty short order. It's nice and concise and just gets right to it, which I appreciate. Like, it explores its characters pretty nicely. Like, the main girl, Arya, she like comes into her own as an adventurer throughout the course of the show, and like her bravery comes through a lot, like very clearly in a lot of different points throughout the show as well. And like Vulcan has sort of a mysterious past that gets teased a little bit and then eventually explored in more detail that explains why she's like so skilled and knowledgeable, especially from the beginning. We only think she's just a blacksmith, but there's more to it. And even Stella and the fairy girls, they're not quite as well rounded, but I'm still glad to have them there, you know? And as opposed to just thinking they're just taking up space, like they don't feel that way at all. And Stella's reincarnation into like a human body seems to follow the same rules as Tama's reincarnation. So it even helps the world building in that sense, like knowing that our protagonist's reincarnation wasn't just some weird one-off occurrence. Like, there's more than one instance of reincarnation in that kind of way happening. The pacing of this too makes it pretty easily digestible, and surprisingly the fight animation and choreography is surprisingly good at some points. And like the plot, or just like the overall story, it's not really anything to write home about. This one's mostly about its characters. There's not really any overarching plot or story, but it's mostly about its characters, this one, so the lack of that can be forgiven, I think. You know, it's not like we were expecting One Piece here or anything. But even though I was not expecting One Piece, this also didn't leave anything up in the air. It really it didn't leave any loose ends. It tied up all the loose ends really nicely. It addressed everything it should have. Like, for example, the elf lady who inspired Arya as a child made a return, like, I think in the second half of the show to help train Arya and the others. Like, it's just surprisingly well put together for what it is. It's like cohesive, it's complete. Yeah, it's probably worth mentioning that I obviously don't find our main cat boy to be a particularly compelling character, but I also never found him to be even a little bit obnoxious, which is basically exactly what I want out of a main character in a show like this, right? Because basically his roles are to be, one, super strong to secretly help the pretty ladies, and two, be the medium for all the fan service, right? So I have no problems with him at all. And, you know, this is a bit of a weird point, but I should mention that this was uncensored on High Dive. Even though it was uncensored, I actually never found the fan service to be overwhelming or detractive from it at any point. Like, it's as close to being tasteful fan service as you can get while still making sure there are bare anime titties. So fair enough. Alright, even given the worthless Appraiser class, I'm actually the strongest. As far as the genre of weakest guy is actually the strongest anime go, I actually found this one to be relatively enjoyable. Like, not amazing by any means, but I think it all builds upon having a likable protagonist, which this one thankfully has. Like, you empathize with his plights from the very beginning. Like, he was given a shitty draw in the game of life, having been given the Appraiser class, which can't really do anything worthwhile, has to like follow along these people who treat him like shit just to get by. So when he does sort of end up being cornered, but is eventually saved by a miracle, but then like he has, you know, this sort of, it's a transformation in a sense, but really it's just you know, a change in attitude. Like, when he's saved by Yuri, he, like, his outlook just flips, and it totally makes sense. Like, he's been given this second chance. He is going to use these, you know, actually properly train to use these gifts that he's been given by Yuri and by Ursula to become stronger and, you know, give himself that second chance. And then, like, as it goes on and, like, more and more colorful, silly characters get added to the squad, I actually find it to be kind of fun more often than not. It's again a good balance, mixing the serious dungeon crawling fantasy aspects with the more just generally mundane silly parts of the show. And I actually don't dislike any of those additional spirits or their watchers or whatever the watchers are. I'm not sure what they're called, but I find them reasonably charming. Like, even Yuri feels like just a better version of other blonde elf primary love interest girls we've seen in this genre of anime before. Like, she's not the most inspiring character ever, but I do think there's enough just in the fact that she's basically been not trapped, but in the place of the world tree for eternity, and getting to see the world alongside Ein is just enough by itself to make me want her to stick around, right? And I like the moment that those two share at the very end, so just comes full circle there. There's even a pretty good angle, albeit kind of predictable, where the big bad, who in this case is like the watcher of the first world tree which got destroyed or whatever. I don't know if that's true. Whatever it is, this Dami Mommy comes in out of nowhere and basically casts a berserker demon curse on the dude who originally ditched Ein in the dungeon where he almost died. But that fight between the berserker, the guy who got berserker cursed, serves as a double purpose, right? Like, it serves as not only a moment of comeuppance for that asshole who ditched Ein in the dungeon, but also as a moment where Ein, like, realizes that he's grown and becomes strong and is able to handle himself after, like, living this life where he's been basically worthless to society. And, like, Yuri and Ursula reassure him that he's a man of good character who they want to have around. It's actually a pretty nice moment for what it is. It even has some cool animation sequences at some points throughout. So yeah, just all around pretty solid. Like, as far as Angry Man Falls Down anime go, this one offends me very little. I'd almost go so far as to say as I liked it. Almost. Liked it is a little extreme. Alright, the daily life of a middle-aged online shopper in another world, boring, don't care. Like, the characters are colorful and distinct, I guess. They're fairly enjoyable for what they are, and maybe there's some humor in the pure bewilderment of this man driving around a forklift fighting dragons and shit, but I just don't care. Each character that's not the main guy basically has one distinct character trait about them, and then their next most important character trait is that they're in love with the main guy. And I'm talking like every single woman who appears, married or otherwise, wants to shakalaka boom boom this man. Except maybe, wait, there's one exception. The girl in the village who got sick that one time, who's Anemone's friend's mom or whatever, she was not into him. But maybe a little bit. Anyway, every woman literally every single woman who appears on screen wants to fuck this man. There's not even a story here. It's just whatever. Like, everything pretty much goes right. Like, there are points of conflict, but none that really last more than 1 or 2 episodes. Like, everything just goes so right, pretty much. Like, conflict is just so easily taken care of. Like, he never really struggles for anything, and even his building of the slow life that he wants is boring because he never struggles for anything. I guess having access to Amazon will do that to you, but still, it's just boring. I don't care. Alright, Ubel Blatt. This one's not bad. It has good world building throughout, and I think the setup's pretty compelling. Nothing like immediately getting a set of villains that make you like, hey, fuck you! I hope you die. That'll get me invested in a show. Now, for this type of show, this is one of the main weaknesses, I think, of this one. The fight scenes in this should be like what get you really involved and like excited about the show, and the fight scenes are just boring. They just don't have the quality of animation they need. They're just not very fun to watch. They don't do anything. They're like just the most mundane fight scenes imaginable. But aside from that, right, it does definitely just story-wise, it does enough to get you interested, I think. But like even just story-wise, I think it does do enough to get you interested, you know, foregoing the sort of lackluster animation. But the problem is, and this is not gonna sound like a problem, but it actually paces itself really well. So it ends up leaving off in a weird spot where you're like, okay, but I'm not really all that satisfied. And I don't think we're gonna get more of this. Like the ending was satisfying enough as it was, but it's just like right smack dab like in the early middle of the story. So it just leaves a lot on the table that we'll probably never see in the anime, right? A lot of the characters, most of the characters, don't really do all that much for me personally, but I don't find them to be poorly written or inconsistent or anything. They're just kind of cookie cutter, I guess I would call them. And I think there probably should have been more time given to like developing the actual relationships between Kainzel and all the other characters. Because like even though Kainzel is supposed to be a sort of emotionally closed off guy, pretty much none of his relationships with the other characters feel like they matter to him or to the story. And therefore, since he's really the only protagonist who was given any true significance to the revenge story that's going on, those other characters kind of just feel like they don't really matter at all. Like, again, I don't find them to be bad or anything. Like, I even like some of the roles they play. Like, there's the one girl who's like the little sister of the princess or whatever, and she's given Kainzel's blood towards the end. Like, I think she's nice to have around at least. But even her and like everyone else, they're just kind of whatever, right? Like they're definitely supposed to be there, and they sort of, I guess, add to the story in their own ways. But most of the other protagonist characters just feel so far removed from the vengeance story, right? Like they're just watching the vengeance play out from a distance. So it just kind of ceilings their characters inherently, right? Like at a level below where Kainzel is. Which is weird for the story to do to its own characters. But yeah, it's not bad. Like, I think the fighting animation is just entirely lame or unimpressive, which is definitely a shame. But I do think it's a decent dark fantasy for what it is. Like, I think the manga is only like 23 volumes or something, so maybe if you like dark fantasy, you should just go for the manga instead. That way you won't have to leave off awkwardly in the middle. But yeah, I think there's definitely intrigue here for sure. I'd read the manga if I had a little more time on my hands. All right, Farmagia. This is my 5th favorite Hiro Mashima work. Yeah, this didn't really do much for me. These characters just absolutely fucking reek of Hiro Mashima, and I kind of can't help but find a lot of their shenanigans kind of funny, even though it is like sort of the bottom of the barrel fairy tale shenanigans, sort of just the leftovers given to these whatever characters. But I do think they're kind of dumb and funny. I can't help it. The pacing of this isn't really good, but I do think it adapted the plot of the whole game, and 12 episodes is definitely not enough to do that. Especially for like a full-length JRPG. Like, I guess just for exposure purposes, in that sense, it wasn't really that bad, but it definitely wasn't good. There's just not a lot of memorable characters here, especially if you're familiar with Mashima's other works. They just fall into the categories of other existing characters, right? Like, and the plot basically just boils down to the main characters, one by one, taking out the Irashion Seis, some of which are pretending to be bad but are good, and some of which are actually bad people, like experimenting on people or whatever. I don't fucking know. But then towards the end, there's a big crisis right at the end for some reason, but then there's a fucking big crisis right at the end for whatever reason, and then the big bad guy shows up, and power friendship, one shot at the end. Also, there's a weird bit, I don't know how the game mechanics are in the context of the actual game, because I never fucking played it, but over time in this anime, the cast learns to use the Unite Blitz ability. Each one learns the Unite Blitz with their little Pokemon friends. And then, which for some reason, the gray equivalent in this show kind of takes an awkwardly large amount of episodes to figure out because of some trauma he had with Ur. Sorry, not Or. Some other older sister figure who died protecting him. Not Or. But then they all get Unite Blitz, and then they all learn Fusion as well, and there just seems to be no consistent way to learn these moves aside from having a relatively unimportant character breakthrough or overcoming your past trauma. I mean, that's basic Mashima stuff, so whatever. Like, maybe it makes more sense in the context of the game, I don't fucking know. But yeah, it was fine. It's not like it wasn't entertaining, but it wasn't really all that great. I don't really know what the deal with the merchant girl is. She's like an angel or whatever. She was kind of being weird and cryptic throughout the whole show. I don't know. There's like a weird twist also where like one of the guys, the main guys who's at the orphanage, appeared to be bad, but then he wasn't bad. It was fine. Alright, and last up on new shows, Flower and Asura. This one is okay. I think the character work is pretty decent. I like that it's very grounded in the way that it addresses voice work, while also using the visuals to express the immersion that you might get from listening to someone who's a good speaker. I appreciate that about it. And I even like the sort of setup of it where Mizuki gets inspired by listening to Hana's recitations. Like the one on the beach specifically. The very dramatic one. This show kind of puts a surprising amount of emphasis on like some kind of strange themes that it doesn't quite follow through with. Like Natsue is the Twin Tails girl who makes a big deal out of the fact that she likes recitations. She enjoys them more, but announcing is what her voice is more suited for, which is all about like the talent, like doing what you're talented at, what basically your God's gift versus what you actually enjoy doing. And anyone who's in the arts will always 100% of the time tell you to do what you enjoy doing, because if you don't actually enjoy what you're doing in creative arts, it's going to come through. So I think that's a weird angle for her to take, especially since she never really gets over that. She keeps doing announcing, which is really weird. I fully believe that. That is like something that just takes me off so much in real life. Anyway, back to the actual show. I do like the character arc of how Mizuki sort of helps show Hana that she doesn't have to hold back from doing what she truly wants to do and like follow her dreams and shit. And then at the end, when Mizuki gets dragged back to a rich family's place and Hana helps give Mizuki the courage she needs to stand up to her grandma and be like, hey, fuck you, I'm gonna go read a book instead of going to my brother's wedding. Fuck you, I'm going home. And thankfully the brother was cool about it, but I like how that sort of comes full circle there. The other characters are fine. Again, like I mentioned, Natsue's arc kind of feels weird, but she does kind of come around and is friends with Hana, which is nice. The undercut guy and his like sort of behind the scenes role, like he picking up piano again, like, I think that's a halfway decent thing that happened there. Even the glasses boy sort of has an arc, I guess. He has really strict parents who want him to be a doctor, and he's sort of partially ignoring their request by just being in the broadcasting club, and he like sort of gets over that, I guess. But hey, whatever. This one's alright. It doesn't really feel fully complete as it is, but it's not because it needs more story tacked onto the end, but it's because that just what it did do just didn't quite feel all the way there, if that makes sense. I do think it's pretty good though. Alright, two cores are next. Tying the knot with an Amagami sister is first. I like this one. This is a cute little not quintuplets anime. I think it's got a solid foundation that it builds everything off of. I really like that Ryu is it contrasts really nicely, right? He's a guy who, like, as a kid, his mom got really sick. He prayed to the gods every day. She died anyway. And now he says, fuck the gods. You can only make what you want to happen yourself. So him going to live at a shrine, especially contrasting with Yuna, who's like very devoted in her own way. It's good. It's a good foundation for what the show becomes. Absolutely. It just works really nicely. And I think the relationship that Uryu builds with the three girls is really wholesome. And, each of the three relationships is unique in its own way. And like he spends time individually with each one. It's just really nice. It's not anything that's gonna blow you away. It's just sort of, it kind of does fall into a paint by numbers harem in a lot of senses, but it's also just enjoyable. Like, I don't think it's not trashy to the point that it's gonna push you off, you know? It's just completely acceptable in every way, I think. It's just, there are even aspects of it that like kind of stretch to good. Like, I like adding the sort of caveat that there is some mischievous being at play who's like sort of, you know, toying with them almost, which again, I've read the manga, I sort of know what's going on, I'm not going to spoil anything. Adding the sort of unconventional element of there being like time loops or body swaps or whatever, like there's more to it than just it being a normal ass harem, right? So I appreciate that about it as well. And the supernatural stuff actually helps Uryu and the other girls come to understand each other better as well, so it's really well done in that aspect. Like, again, each one of the girls have their own unique motivations and goals, like, and backstories that play into, like, how they ended up at the shrine, and, like, how Uryu helps them individually overcome their sort of doubts. He helps them each one of the girls overcome their own doubts and, like, sort of improve themselves. It's just, they've got a good thing going. It's just sweet. I have nothing to complain about. I think it's just a delightful little watch. I didn't expect it to be 24 episodes back to back, but I was pleasantly surprised. I think it was paced really nicely. It's like you see Uryu earn their trust little by little. He has to try hardest for Yuna, of course, but he does earn all of the girls' trust individually by, like, you know, proving himself and showing his earnest, you know, how earnest he is to them, and like how he does truly grow to love the Amagami Shrine and the girls there. It's especially how that comes full circle with the arc at the end with Shirahi and like her own world that gets made, parallel world. But yeah, very cute, wholesome, no notes. Yay. All right, next up is the Blue Wolves of Miburo. This one is okay. It's kind of like if Windbreaker was taking place in the setting of Rurouni Kenshin. Which sounds weird to say, but that is kind of what it was. This one, it sort of feels like it drags its feet a lot. I don't mind the characters at all, you know, namely the main guy. I think he's fine. I do generally like what it does with the more important characters, you know, like the kid who's like a really good swordsman or whatever, trained under a master he took his name from. And then there's like that kid who's a janitor, he like cleans up shit, whatever. And I like how it like develops the main character, like leaves the main guy off in a place where he's changed a lot from the beginning. It was a nice way to end it with like him showing off this flag saying sincerity to the emperor or whoever. But there's also a lot of just other characters in the Blue Wolf squad who I just have no idea who they are. Like they're just completely unmemorable or like do like barely anything. Like maybe there are a couple of adult figures in the Blue Wolves that I should probably remember, but don't. So then when that final arc rolls around with like the arsonist samurai guy and the pregnant lady, and there's a lot of guys I've never seen in my life that I swear I've never seen in my life fighting people, it just kind of comes off as it's just this big spiral of like non-investment. Because like I don't know who these characters are. They're like fighting people, and it seems like even during some of the fights, like things about those characters which I thought I didn't know about are being revealed to me. So I'm like, oh, so I didn't know anything about these characters. Like, so it's like they're last minute lore dumping on these characters who I probably should have been invested in before they started fighting people. So just overall, like that last arc was, I guess, okay for what it was. It did a lot of things that was like, you know, at least it felt very distinct from the rest of the show. But it never feels like it evolves beyond a point where I'm just like, hey, that was pretty good. Like, it never gets past that point for me. Like, I'll never, you know, I'm not gonna remember this when season 2 rolls around. I'm not gonna remember what happened. And honestly, I'm not sure I'm gonna need to. Like, I'm just gonna need to know that the main character his spirit, his heart is stronger than it was at the start of this show. It just doesn't really leave that much of a lasting impression. It just kind of is there. Which is fine, it's allowed to do that, but I'm not gonna remember anything. Ooh boy. Okay, Blue Box. It's peak romance. I don't know what else to tell you, honestly. I actually have a lot of notes, but it is like, I think, my favorite romance anime, full stop. It is just so unbelievably wholesome and well handled from every angle, I think. I think there's something really charming about the idea that these two main characters are like the first ones to the gym every morning to practice their sports. So like when they finally do end up in a situation where they start getting to know each other, that being them living together, there's no sense of like distrust at all. There's just like sort of an inherent like understanding between the two of them. And you know, even though we know Taiki's already got a thing for Chinatsu, she has an inherently positive impression of him because she knows he pops up to the gym every morning to work his ass off. So she has a good impression of him from the start, an inherently good impression, even if she doesn't necessarily realize it. It's just really sweet in that way. And like, you perfectly understand from the start why Taiki is into Chinatsu and like the slow burn of their relationship, getting closer and closer. It just works. It's so cute. And like, while Taiki, he feels like such a straightforward guy, a little easy to get a read on, Chinatsu, we're constantly like learning new things about her as the show goes on. Like, we don't really know much about her at the beginning, but then as it goes on, we're constantly learning a little bit more about her little by little. So we're along for the ride just like he is, and that kind of makes us root for Taiki even more. So I think the pacing of the romance development is just perfect. And can I just say the visuals are completely on another level in this show. Like the art style, the lighting, the shading, it's all wonderful, man. Like the animation just rules. There's no shortcuts in this show, it feels like. Like between the badminton and basketball sequences, it's legitimately as good as any sports anime out there, I think. And like, if I had to sum up what's so impressive about this show's animation quality, I vividly remember a scene in the first half of the show, towards the beginning, where Taiki and the badminton boys, they're just talking in the background of the shot. They're just talking about whatever. But in the foreground of the shot, there are some dudes we don't know having a badminton match, and it's like a full-on animated match. Even though it's a stationary shot, these kids are moving around like actively, like, and it's not just repeated sequences either. It's like this back and forth rally of badminton. I think it's only one guy, but he is moving. Like, he's moving around, swinging the racket. It's fluid motion. Choreography feels deliberate. Like, it's literally the most mundane scene imaginable. Like, it's literally the most mundane scene imaginable. It only takes up a few seconds, but in that few seconds, this show has more fluid motion than some anime do in their entire runtime. And of course, I don't think we can move on from Blue Box without talking about Hina. I think she's the most well done, obviously doomed from the start, love interest character ever. Like, one of, if not the best. She just feels so sincere from the beginning, and the way the story treats her crush on Taiki is really sweet, like, especially given how weird of a situation she's in, where she likes a guy who's into another girl, and especially since she knows that the guy she likes is into another girl. And like the twists and turns that she has to endure knowing that Taiki does like Chinatsu, they make you empathize with her so easily. And like, even the fact that she gets rejected, it like shows how seriously Taiki took both her feelings for him and his own for Chinatsu. So it's like really nice in that sense. So that doesn't leave Hina in love interest limbo for the whole show, right? Like, it's just really nicely done. Also worth addressing, Ayame, she's not here for very long in this season, but you can kind of tell she's there as like this girl whose view of romance is like so skewed in an odd direction that she's going to be steered back into a better direction by being paired up with the most down-to-earth guy in the show. And it's not like she doesn't have her own role to play as like the girl who's sort of like upfront and tells it like it is all the time, which is refreshing in a way. But in fairness, she doesn't really do much beyond this point either. This is another one of those shows where I can rant all I want, but none of it will do it justice. Like, it is, again, I think this is my favorite romance anime ever, full stop. It's so visually beautiful. It's not too fast or too slowly paced. The characters feel really genuine and down to earth. It's silly sometimes, but it also puts the right emotional weight on the characters' feelings and the characters' highs and lows they go through. And it also gives enough time to show the characters' dedication to their practice, and like the sports play into the romance perfectly. Like the fact that it's not just about the romance, but also partially about sports as well. It really helps keep the necessary interpersonal drama that this show needs to have more to a natural low in comparison to other romance anime, right? Because we don't need pointless drama between these like love interests for no reason. They're also dealing with going to nationals in their sport or whatever. So that really helps balance out the romance aspects of this show. It's just, if you're a self-respecting anime fan who likes romance anime even a little bit, just watch this show, man. It's so awesome. What are you doing? Alright, sequels. Solo Leveling, Season 2. When are we giving the animators a raise? They need it yesterday. This is crazy. This shit was crazy, man. Oh my god. Now, surprisingly, I actually think this season starts to bring this whole wild and wacky world together in a way that almost kind of works. Like, it kind of seemed like everything was just wildly disconnected last season, but now I'm starting to feel like it's a little more put together after this one, if that makes sense. I'm not completely on board with Jinu as the main character. I always felt like he never really earned his crazy power, and that he was just kind of some edgy dickweed who hated everyone, but I thought about it, right? You can say he earned his second awakening by continuing to try in dungeon raids and being persistent despite the fact that he was so weak, and he kept persevering through the tough times, so he was maybe given some kind of gift by the system or whatever you want to call it, even though his new abilities basically are actual cheats and make him absurdly strong in essentially a blink of an eye. Whatever. But I do think he does show more character in this season, so. And also, like, the through line and, like, Jinu's primary motivation was always getting the elixir of life to save his mom. And that's totally fine and dandy and all. Like, the fighting, and that's totally fine and dandy and all. Because the fighting is unreal. Like, every single time Jinu fights anybody, the animation is unbelievable. So it's like cool and fun to watch, and like there's even in some ways I think Jinu exploring the world in like different types of gates or dungeons or whatever you want to call them, it's cool. It's like D&D-esque, right? Like you're these various very different locations that he's going to, different bosses he has to fight. It's adventuring, right? It's not, they're not really connected much to each other. A lot of the individual events aren't connected to each other, but there is some amount of coolness to each individual thing that happens. You know, the mom being the primary motivation, like that gets resolved this season, right? So Jinu does after that, and it's a really emotional, beautiful scene, right? Like Jinu actually like tears up. It's like the most amount of emotion bro has ever shown, from, you know, aside from like the very beginning when he almost dies, I guess. But like it's just a really beautiful scene. But then also after that, there's still a potential. There's still like a big problem they're facing, and it's invasion on an ant colony. Which turns out to be really cool, but it's like when I was watching it at the time, I'm like, what the fuck? What about the ants? Great, his mom's awake. What about the ants? And I think that's kind of why this show feels weird sometimes and not really connected as a story. Now, that being said, though, the invasion of the ant colony, I think, does a pretty good job of getting you invested. Like, at least rooting for the hunters' safety, you know? Like, hoping they get rid of the ants. And I kind of like how they did it, like, as well, with, like, the main force. They did accomplish the original goal, right? Like, the main force managed to defeat the queen. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, fucking Meruem shows up. Not Meruem. The super strong mega ant who can speak and is evolving at a rapid rate, not Meruem, shows up out of nowhere. And you're like, all right, here's now Jinu can finally show up in Aura Farm for 12 minutes. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. It was kind of really fucking raw though, so I can't even be that mad, but it was really it was so fucking raw actually. But yeah, with all that being said, I still think Solo Leveling as an entity just ultimately fails to tell a fundamentally compelling story based on the massive world that it builds. Like, it's too much world. Like, everything Jinwoo does ties back to wanting to save his mother, which I think works. But that doesn't mean it couldn't have also built a story that actually connects to each event and has meaning. It holds weight beyond just Jinwoo might die. I think what it's missing is like a proper antagonist. I think that's a big thing that this show is missing. Someone who's like pulling the strings, maybe who knows about Jinwoo's system ability, something like that, to really give weight to what's going on. Like someone who's pulling the strings, masterminding what's going on, who is responsible for forming the gates in this world, anything like that. Something that we can tie all of these things back to. Like something that we can tie all of these happenings back to, because even if they seem unrelated on the surface, if there is someone who's like responsible for making the gates in this world, even if Jinwoo goes to a bunch of different gates which have nothing to do with each other, you can tie back to the guy who's made the gates and fucked with the world as they know it. Like, there's something there, but this show doesn't have that. Like, this show legitimately ceilings itself because of that. Like, it limits how invested you can get in the story without someone or something to root against. You only have Jinwoo to root for, but not one to root against, which is, it literally ceilings itself. And I get that lack of someone pulling the strings is world building in its own way, right? Because maybe if there was someone pulling the strings, it doesn't really fit with this chaotic world that Solo Leveling has built, you know, with the quote-unquote sudden emergence of the gates, right? But just doesn't reach the pinnacle of that other anime reach because of that ceiling, right? Like Jinwoo versus that intelligent bug guy would be like, I think we could compare Jinwoo versus that like intelligent bug Meruem guy to something akin to like Naruto versus Pain. Naruto versus Pain if there was no Obito or Itachi in Naruto. Like it would basically just be another fight. And it would mean nothing in the grand scheme of things, which is what it is in Solo Leveling. And that's why it ceilings itself. I just spoiled Naruto, but you get it. I don't want to reduce Solo Leveling to hot dog taco hamburger, but I'm gonna reduce it to hot dog taco hamburger. Doesn't do anything important. Alright, next up is The 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You, Season 2. I can't help but like this one. As much as I don't want to like it, I'm just kind of like, oh god, it's funny. No. Like a lot of the humor that it does use, it's not really for me, but a lot of it is just, it's that off-the-wall goofiness that anime does so well, turned up to 11, right? And the characters' interactions with each other, they never really get to feel stale, which I find impressive in itself. And then the shenanigans that they get up to, they aren't just like throwaway garbage. They actually help with character progression sometimes. Like, it just depends on which character is being focused on, I guess. But it's also fairly quick to transition from one thing to the next, so it never feels like it gets overwhelming or annoying. This is an anime that, like, if this one's one of your favorites, if you meet someone else who it's one of their favorites, you've found a kindred degenerate spirit for life. You know, like, this show unites degenerates like no other. And like I said, I didn't, you know, the humor's not really my thing, but I do think it does execute the humor well. And I think it lands, right? Like, the characters are silly and quirky and fun in their own unique ways, and there are a lot of them now. I think we got up to 11 girlfriends. They all still feel distinct in their own unique ways, right? Like, the constant shenanigans they get up to, it's always pretty good fun. Like, we've got the eating contest in this season, the baseball game, the sort of what was it, like the beauty contest. There was like the hair fiasco, all kinds of weird shit. And like weird shit for no reason, like that are just kind of funny and like help the characters shine in their own distinct ways is really all I can ask for, especially in a goofy slice of life like this. Like, this whole premise is just designed for stupidity. And I kind of can't help but like it for that. And I don't think that the new girlfriends that are added this season fall short at all, right? Like, each one has their own little sort of, mini arc that happens in the lead up to them joining the girlfriend squad. Like, Kurumi has her, she sort of, like, doesn't have a lot of friends, but she rediscovers friendship by, like, joining the squad or whatever. Learns to be more true to herself, I guess. Iko has the baseball trauma where she can't hit very well because she accidentally hit someone when she hit a homer. Again, who else? Well, let me check my notes. Maid Girl, right? She had the backstory of, like, with the mom with mommy, and she, through interacting with Rentaro, she sort of learns to have more self-worth and self-confidence. There's Mimi and her past with Nano, and like how that sort of ties into her high opinion of herself, but it works for her. Very nice. And even Meme's little arc of learning a little more self-confidence, not doing the Kuroko's basketball disappearing act. They all have those little arcs that, like, help us understand them more as characters and watch them grow a little bit with Rentaro's help before they join the squad. So no one ever feels out of place or forced in. And, like, everyone always has, like, one or two oddball traits to help set them apart, which I find kind of silly, kind of charming. Like, and the way the other girls are always immediately welcoming to the new girls, and they all interact with each other like they've been best friends for years. It's really sweet and fun to watch. Like, even a lot of the background sort of interactions that happen, beyond the dialogue, I find them really cute. Even stuff like the last thing that happens in this season of re-tsundere and Karane is somehow kind of charming and fun. Like, maybe it's because it's so dumb, but I just can't help but be like, all right, you know what? You got me. Like, it's fun. I can't deny it. So, fair enough. Oh boy, Ishura, season 2. I don't know why I kept watching this one. Oh, man. So you're telling me that 2 seasons worth of following 16 different main characters was just so that they could eventually fight in a big tournament arc that's not going to happen in the anime. Unreal. Now, I thought about it while I was writing my notes, right? And I realized that there is, I think, some amount of appeal in the idea that these first 2 seasons sort of like cover various, 16 different perspectives on how a bunch of different folks are living in this post-demon lord hero calamity, whatever the fuck happened that changed the world. I don't know, here's a scenario of someone with the absolute bare minimum of character work going through something kind of fucked up, or a situation where they can show off their ability that they have. And all of their fucked up situations or whatever tie back to the calamity happening and making life go to shit or whatever. Like, we get to see all kinds of fucked up shit from so many different parts of the world, which is cool, maybe. I don't care, though. It just does nothing for me. Like, the show doesn't even work as a distraction, because I have no reason to actually care about any of the characters or be invested in what's going on, because none of it is connected, pretty much. Like, it's not following a story, it's following the entire world. And that's way too much for me, man. I honestly can't tell you a single thing that happened. I definitely watched it, but I did not. Oof. Yeah, none of the main characters end up mattering at all, because we don't get to see the tournament arc, so the next hero is not going to be crowned in the context of the anime. So, like, why bother? Why did I follow those characters? Why would I even try to care about them? There's no reason for me to. I'd rather lick my own nutsack. Oh boy, Unnamed Memory, Season 2. I've come to the conclusion that Unnamed Memory, it just doesn't piece together everything that it has in a compelling way. Or even in a way that makes sense. everything just feels really disjointed. Like, there are a handful of good animation sequences, like surprisingly strong animation sequences in fights and stuff, but basically no other characters besides the main two even matter. You could even make an argument that the main two don't matter, because wait till I get to the end of this. Like, there are characters besides the main two who sort of change the course of the story, but they do like, they change the course like one time by doing something weird that sort of goes against the grain, or like does something that Tinasha doesn't want to deal with but is going to anyway. They do it one time, the problem gets resolved, and then they never appear again. That's like every other character that's not Tinasha or Oscar. And like, you know, just like most sort of, I guess, fantasy romances, Oscar and Tinasha's romantic moments feel all the more sweet and like happy because they have gone through so much BS, right? Like, they've gone through so much stuff to earn these like happy moments with each other or whatever, and that's why they mean something. But the things that they do go through to get to those romantic moments, which are really like the main primary thing that the show puts its focus on, because it feels like everything else is disjointed, those things they do go through don't really mean anything and don't hold a lot of weight in the context of the story for the most part. So like, all of these things that happen, they just feel weird and disjointed at best, and completely pointless and baffling at worst. Throwing all of my complaints away, the ending just proves my point, because the first season ends with Oscar ditching the timeline that they had spent like the first 10, 11 episodes making. He uses the orb of confusion to travel back in time to help Tinasha at when she was a child, creating a new timeline, which they had to build from the ground up. That's the whole point. When you use the orb, you have to build the new timeline from the ground up. And at the second season, they're in the new timeline. And then they like destroy the orbs at the end of the second season and go back to the original timeline, which they ditched at the end of season 1. So they were in a new timeline at the end of season 1, and at the end of season 2, they're back to the original timeline, which they ditched in the first place. It's baffling. What was the point of anything at all? Like, none of the other characters have any meaning to the story. What story? What am I even talking about? It's confusing. It's obvious there's a very like vast world here, and I think the world building could have been pretty cool if they actually let it be, but it's not conveyed well at all, and the story is just completely disjointed. My God, I just don't understand the point of anything. Maybe I'm just an idiot. I get it. I'm a dumb fucking dumbass who doesn't understand anything. Monkey brain moron. But goddamn, it left me confused and wondering what the point of anything even was. And I don't want to be left that way, especially after a 24 episode ordeal like this. Alright, next up is My Happy Marriage Season 2. I like this as a continuation from Season 1. I mentioned last time I covered this one, this is not in my wheelhouse, shoujo stuff like this, so forgive me if I do sound a little indifferent, because I do think it's good, but it's just a little uneventful or slow-paced for my taste, I guess. Now that said, I do think a lot of what the season does builds off Season 1 in a good way. Like Season 1 was a lot about Miyu sort of coming into her own as a person and begin believing in herself a little bit, along with discovering her ability and all that. But this season, we have like additions like Karuko, who is like Miyu's first friend and all that, and there's a little extra drama added when it's revealed that she was meant to marry Kyoka before Miyu. But like they get through that, and their friendship comes out stronger on the other side. I like that, like, because Miyu doesn't really have any other people, like girls, her age to be friends with, so I think it's really wholesome and sweet. It also introduces the antagonist of this season, who is, I don't remember his exact relationship, was he adopted or whatever, but he had a thing for Miyu's mom before Miyu's mom got married off. And now that Miyu's mom is gone, he's being all creepy and weird with his illusion ability and like making trouble for selfish reasons and stuff. And of course, like the primary thing, they continue building the relationship between Miyu and Kyoka really nicely. I think they have a really nice dynamic. Again, they contrast each other really well. Like, his blunt aloofness, I guess you'd call it, it sort of cancels out that, like, sort of insecure timidness that Miyu has. It works for both of them. Like, they're always there for each other, just a model relationship. Again, really good example. Now, I honestly could not tell you the names of any other characters besides the main two and then Karuko. And, like, the vicious hate that Miyu gets from, like, seemingly every character for no fucking reason at all, it just feels uncomfortably forced sometimes. But otherwise, the world building is pretty good. It's not bad, and the involvement of the antagonist, again, someone to really root against, makes for a good counterpoint for Miyu to further develop her abilities and her confidence in herself. So, but yeah, I just think this one's very well put together. Like, every move feels pretty intentional, so I like it. Next up, Toilet Bound Hanako-kun Season 2. Man, this series has such a unique charm about it, doesn't it? It's quite good. Well, I think specifically I really like Nene and Hanako more than any other characters. A lot of sort of like very much in line with season 1. A lot of what happens in the first half feels largely inconsequential when compared to the second half. Although even really the second half, I guess it sort of did present points of conflict that they got over in the end. But that's definitely the main thing worth talking about in this season. Actually, there's going to be a part 2 to season 2, I believe, coming up at some point. Because the second half is the arc where Nene and the blonde kid, whose name where Nene and Ko are stuck in the 4th Spirit's painting. Is it the 4th? Whatever her name is. They're stuck in her perfect world. Very Dr. Maruki-esque. So they're stuck in that perfect world and they have to find their way out because in that world, Mitsuba, Ko's friend, and Hanako are both living instead of spirits, which is not right. But it also ties in a simultaneous point of drama with the idea that it introduces in the season, surprisingly, like out of nowhere, that Nene has less than a year to live in the real world because like that fate is predestined or whatever. Like she's definitely going to die in less than a year, but we don't know the exact cause. So that's ties into the motivation of Hanako trying to keep her in the painting because she won't age while she's in the fake world, right? So she won't have to die. But then there's the exact point of conflict with, turn to Dr. Maruki again. The same thing, like you don't want to live a falsehood. You want to live the truth. You want to live in the real world, have real experiences, etc. So they do eventually get out and all that. The painting world also has, it shows the backstory of the 4th, of the girl who becomes the painter spirit. And I believe she had like a chronic illness or whatever. Either way, she's hospitalized, doesn't really, can't really do a lot, probably doesn't have long to live, etc. Who does make a deal with like the 4th wonder of the school and like manages to become a spirit who can create these fictional worlds inside paintings, which I think is a good aspect of the second half as well. So yeah, just the second half, I found that sort of inside the painting arc had good pacing and everything, just a really nice little arc to end this part of the season. But even before that, I just find this relatively charming. Like I can't remember what happened, but I do remember enjoying myself watching the first half of this season. Hanako-kun just has such a very unique charm, not just about the visuals, but also just, I feel like, about how it presents its characters. There's just something unique about it. I can't put my finger on it, but I do find it quite enjoyable. They're just very easily charming, all these characters, I think. Yeah, good dynamic between everyone too. Like even some of the side characters, they come into play. Oh, I remember the clock, the guy about the guy who can stop time or whatever. Nailed it. Anyway, yeah, no, I like this one. I'm looking forward to more for sure. I mean, I feel like if you watch season 1, like I don't need to sell you on season 2, but hey. This one, I do like Hanako-kun. I think it's cool. A rousing endorsement. All right, next up is Rurouni Kenshin, Season 2. These are, by the way, these last 4 holy shit, are 2 cores and also sequels. So now we're getting into the final category. Rurouni Kenshin Reboot Season 2. I don't have much to say here. I think it's a good continuation from Season 1. A lot of training arcs this go around. Kind of goes in a direction I wasn't really expecting, in the sense that there's not a lot of real significance that happens in terms of like the fighting, I guess. It also introduces a lot more antagonists, like sort of, I guess, lower level. Like it's almost like they'd be the equivalent of like a Team Rocket generals or like Team Rocket admins, right? It's just sort of like what a lot of the characters that get antagonist characters that get introduced are, or amount to. And not a lot of them get a lot of screen time or even get defeated in this season. It just sort of deepens the conflict, I guess, a lot of points of conflict between the good guys and the bad guys. But I do think the training sequence, like a lot of the training arcs that like Sanosuke and Kenshin do go through, I think they're pretty good for what they are, but it just feels really middling. That's the big thing I felt with this one. I think Misao is a welcome addition to the cast. I don't know how much she's gonna play in later, but I did find her quite charming when she, especially towards the beginning when she was introduced. It seems like she sort of fell into a background role as it went on, and really, like, it felt so middling that it didn't even really develop the romance between Kenshin and Kaoru at all. Like that just stagnated as well. And like there was a confrontation between Kenshin and the guy who's with a burned face or whatever. God, I don't know his name. Like there was a confrontation on his boat, and there was some cool fight scenes there. But it just feels so middling. Like it just feels like the weird, awkward middle part of a shonen where nothing much really happens and there's a lot of training arcs. But the training arcs didn't really take up a lot of time, which is the weird thing. Like the training arcs were just maybe a couple episodes at most, and even in those episodes there were other things going on simultaneously. Yeah, like there's, it wasn't bad, and it's not like I didn't enjoy watching it. It just didn't really feel like it did anything. Because like, even that confrontation on the bad guy's boat, they were just like, oh, you're gonna have to meet me in Kyoto or wherever I go to commit arson or whatever. It just set up for another confrontation later, and not much was really changed. So I guess we'll see. They did get season 3 announced, so I guess we'll see how it plays out there. But yeah, I just didn't really get a lot out of this one. Like I said, not bad, but it just feels, it's definitely the awkward middle part of a shonen. All right, next up, I've just combined these into one: Blue Exorcist season 4 and season 5. Beyond the Snow Saga or something. They aired back to back. It doesn't matter. This part of Blue Exorcist felt like it should have happened like 2 seasons ago. Season 4 felt pretty dang slow, but at least we were sort of addressing Yukio, right? Because it felt like, since the very beginning, it's felt like Yukio was going to become evil, essentially. At least temporarily, and we finally got his big heel turn here, which was necessary. Like, it sort of built up the stress that Yukio had sort of been feeling throughout all of Blue Exorcist. Like, I mentioned in the last time I covered Blue Exorcist, Yukio needs his dick sucked. He didn't get his dick sucked, and now he's evil. See what happened? But yeah, and then it gets into season 5, which is all about the backstory between Shiro and the twins, Rin and Yukio's mom, Yuri, which actually just takes up the whole season. I don't really think it needed to. I don't feel like all of it was necessary, but it help us get a more complete picture of what happened leading up to the birth of Rin and Yukio, which again is a sort of a big turning point in the world of exorcism. I feel like that's pretty fair to say. But there are points even in that backstory that just sort of feel like they're sort of reaching a bit to just conveniently put everything into place so that it leads up to the point where Blue Exorcist began, right? With, Yukio having been an exorcist for years and Rin not knowing anything until one day out of nowhere. But yeah, like, I don't think it was bad. It just sort of both felt pretty slow. Both season 4 and season 5 felt pretty slowly paced. I didn't find that backstory to be, like, particularly compelling. Again, I think if it was a bit shorter, I would have gotten a little more out of it. But as it was, it wasn't bad at all. Like, especially seeing Yuri in depth for the first time, because obviously she didn't make it to where Blue Exorcist started. And also just seeing like how Satan, which it doesn't really make sense to me, but got to the point where he could have, conceived a child, half human children, it was all right. I feel like this should have happened way earlier, because I do think there is a part of maybe all of season 2 and part of season 1 that actually weren't in the manga. I don't know how to confirm that. I guess read the manga, but felt late. Like, why are we getting this super important backstory in season 5? Anyway, I'm just more curious about where it goes from here with Yukio, and I don't know if they're gonna get more Blue Exorcist anime. So yeah, and there was a lot of awkward romantic angles in season 4, which never resolved either. So yeah, they both felt kind of awkwardly slow. If Blue Exorcist doesn't come back, fine. Alright, next up, Shangri-La Frontier, Season 2. Brother, I honestly don't even know what to tell you. This shit fucks. Like, it's so good. Literally, I've said this a couple times, no notes. No notes. I've read them, again, after Season 1 ended, I read the manga, I have no notes. Like, Shangri-La Frontier, somehow, like, this is normally the type of show I wouldn't care about, because it's not really telling a full story or anything. Like, and a lot of the events just, it's a lot about Sunraku just doing things because he feels like it. But somehow, I just like these characters, and the fight scenes are cool, and the amount of detail is not too much, but it's enough so that I'm like, oh, it's cool, I can follow along with this. I can get involved a little bit, feel, invested in his journey through Shangri-La Frontier. Even his various trips to other games and fight against Lycon fucking rules, and the start of the fighting game thing that they do towards the very end of this season. I remember reading that arc expecting to hate it, and it just ruled from start to finish. Just Shangri-La Frontier is so good. I love the characters. They're just so fun to watch. Like, it's just a delight. Like, this is a no consequence thing that just works on every fucking level, and also the animation is so good. Like, really well choreographed fight scenes, fluid animation, really cool visuals throughout. No fucking notes, man. Shangri-La Frontier is so awesome. Next is also last. Re:Zero, Starting Life in Another World, Season 3. This is a very almost baffling roller coaster, but it is a good roller coaster. Now, I kind of came into Season 3 expecting we'd actually get more about the royal selection, which we sort of almost did, but not really. But then it just devolves into this fucking crazy spiral of Archbishop of the Wishes cult coming out of fucking nowhere and fucking shit up big time, ultra nightmare mode. It has the typical ups and downs you'd expect out of a season of Re:Zero. Subaru dies a couple times, in a really fucked up way, various fucked up ways you might even say. I think all around it was a solid addition to Re:Zero, especially because we got to see a lot of the different archbishops of the witches cult, which we'd never seen before, which is cool. A lot all at once. And like even welcoming back a lot of these characters who only appeared in season 1 and kind of took a hiatus in season 2 while they went off to the sanctuary or whatever. It was interesting. It was kind of, a lot of them I'd sort of forgotten about. Like Krush and the girl with the Kyoto accent, purple hair. A lot of these characters I'd sort of forgotten about. So it was interesting to welcome them back and then eventually see them fight in the second half. And talking about characters, Liliana I also thought was a nice addition. She didn't have a massive role to play, but she did have a role to play, and it was important. So we got to see her backstory a little bit too. I think she was a nice addition. Just sort of, I wasn't unhappy to have her there. So great. She added a tinge of silliness that I think was necessary as well. And just a lot of the fights that do happen in the second half are like, some of them carry more storytelling weight than others. Like, the Swordsmaster fighting his undead wife comes to mind. But even a lot of the fights, like, you know, Subaru and Amelia fighting the Archbishop of Greed, I guess, would be the guy with a gazillion wives. The pacing of that fight was, like, interesting. It sort of kept you on your toes, and, like, Subaru had a cool role to play in, like, figuring out the guy's weakness and stuff. But like, even amongst that, right, like, Amelia has a good character moment with the wives, right, where she's like, I don't know exactly what love is, but it's not this. And, you know, that's a cool moment for her, because she does have that sort of a revelation in the previous season, in season 2. Like, fighting seeing the Gluttony, the Archbishop of Gluttony, for, like, I think we've probably seen him a couple times before, but, like, actually seeing him fight and how, like, kind of fucked up it is. And then there's also that weird transforming girl, I don't remember what she is, but a lot of these fights are, like, not the, you know, super interesting, especially since they end inconclusively, but they are interesting for what they are. And, like, it's the combination of seeing these archbishops and also these characters that I barely remember from season 1 fighting each other. It's cool to, like, it's almost acts as a refresher almost. But in talking about the fights, right, I think the animation and choreography of the fight scenes are really, really good. Like, it's one of the very few anime I think I've seen where sometimes it feels like when anime do fight scenes, they almost switch to a different animation style, and the fight scenes feel so distinct from the rest of the show. That does not feel that way. Like, they blend in so nicely with the like, it doesn't feel like they change anything when they do the fight scenes. It's surprising. It's really cool. They're really well choreographed. But there is one exception that comes to mind. I think the fight between Garfield in the sewer and that other guy, I forget his name. He just sort of appeared and then died. But yeah, that fight between that Garfield's last fight in this season went crazy. Like, all kinds of really dynamic and creative camera angles and stuff. Just a really cool fight scene that kind of came out of nowhere and surprised me. Like, they'd all been good, of course, but that was really next level. But yeah, like I mentioned, it has all the good ups and downs. I think I'd be remiss not to mention how even after, you know, seeing and all kinds of fucked up shit and dying a couple times, even just in the city within the confines of season 3, Subaru does have his, like, moment where when basically the whole city is at its lowest point, morale is fucking below the earth. Like, Subaru has the moment where he talks through the intercoms and is trying to, like, lift everybody up, and it, like, showcases how much he's grown as a character since the very beginning of ReZero, where he was, like, so uncertain what to do and constantly getting, like, toyed with and dying over and over again. Like, he's learned perseverance, and he's learned to, like, have hope even in tough situations. Like, it really is a good moment for his character that really showcases how far he's come since the beginning. That speech he does through the intercom, it's so very Subaru, right? Because it's not perfectly delivered. It's sort of awkwardly, his communication is a little awkward and a little clunky, but it just works, and it helps get everyone's spirits back up. And even though it does feel a little convenient, the matchups with all of the various characters matching up to fight with the different archbishops, it's nice. So it's just cool to fight, because, you know, even if they don't end conclusively, is like, whatever, at least now they can go back to the selection or whatever. And, like, you have to appreciate Subaru's perseverance, because we've seen season 1 and season 2, that man has seen some shit, some fucked up shit. Like, he is built different. Anyone else in his position would have given up a long time ago. But yeah, like, again, I think it's a pretty solid arc of ReZero. I don't think it stands completely all the way up there with, like, the Sanctuary stuff, or it also does leave on a pretty cool cliffhanger. Yeah, I think ReZero season 3 was very solid. And I'm looking forward to season 4, because I'm hoping it'll sort of give us a little more conclusivity of some of the stuff we saw this season. I'm hoping. And that is all for this seasonal roundup. That was a lot. Hopefully, I'm going back to a slightly more normal amount of shows next season. Probably closer to 30 instead of 38. I was actually surprised because a lot of the weird throwaway shows this season actually turned out to be pretty good. So it's like not only were there 38 fucking shows, but a lot of them were also pretty good. So I had a lot of things to mention. But yeah, it'll be more normal next time around, I swear. I'll see y'all next season. I won't be doing Fire Force, but because that falls into stuff like my favorite shows. Like, obviously I didn't do Dr. Stone this time around. I'm not going to do Fire Force next season, but we're going to ride the wave, baby. Please get this below 3 hours.